we present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 1, A Penny for Your Thoughts.
Paul, I do wish you'd get out of my way.
Now, don't be irritable, Steve.
Darling, we've been away for 6 weeks and I'm trying to unpack.
Yes, all right. Where's that hat, the one I bought in New York?
Now, what on earth do you want that for?
I want to try it on.
Well, you can't try it on now, not in your pyjamas.
Oh, here it is. I think it's too big.
I told you that in the shop.
It looked all right in New York.
Yes, well, we're not in New York now.
Come in. What is it, Charlie?
Sir Graham Forbes is here, sir.
Sir Graham?
Yes, sir. I put him in the living room. Was that all right, sir?
Yes, that's all right, Charlie. Where's my dressing gown?
It's on the bed.
Oh, thanks.
Paul, dear,
Yes?
I shouldn't wear the hat.
Ah, welcome home, Temple. Good to see you again.
Hello, Sir Graham. How are you?
I'm fine. Did you have a nice trip?
Splendid.
Hello, Steve.
Hello, Sir Graham.
My word, you do look well. You glad to be home?
Well, I don't know. It all depends what you've got up your sleeve.
I haven't got anything up my sleeve, so don't you worry, my dear.
Then what is this, a social call?
Not exactly. I want some information.
What about?
Well, when you were on the boat coming back over from America, did you meet a man called Portland? Sam Portland?
Yes, we did.
Did you see much of him?
Well, I had a long talk with him. As a matter of fact, I was going to phone you about it.
Oh, why?
Because there's something about Portland you ought to know.
What exactly?
Wouldn't it be better if you start the story at the beginning, darling?
Yes, do, Temple.
Well, we left America last Thursday, or rather, early Friday morning. It was just after 1 o'clock when the boat sailed. Oh, here you are, Steve. I've been looking all over the ship for you.
Doesn't New York look wonderful? Oh, Paul, I wish we weren't leaving.
I wish I was in bed. Golly, I'm tired. Can't keep my eyes open.
You go to bed, darling. I'm staying on deck for a little while.
Yes, all right. Don't catch cold. Good night, darling.
Good night, Paul.
That's the George Washington Bridge over there. Isn't that something?
It certainly is. What's that place over on the right?
Oh, that's Staten Island.
Oh, yes, of course. I ought to know that by now, but things look different at night.
How long have you been over here?
About 4 weeks.
In New York?
Most of the time in New York.
How did you like it?
I like it enormously.
It's some city, isn't it?
Is this your first trip to England?
I guess it is. At least I don't think I've been there before.
You don't think... You don't know?
No, I don't. Maybe we ought to introduce ourselves. My name is Portland, Sam Portland.
I'm Mrs. Temple.
Oh, was that your husband, the tall, tired-looking gentleman?
Yes, that was my husband. He's suffering from an overdose of American hospitality.
Oh, so that's it.
He'll look quite different tomorrow.
Maybe we'll all look different tomorrow.
Is it going to be rough?
Don't worry, Mrs. Temple. It'll be as smooth as a glass of milk. I hope. Excuse me, sir. Mr. Temple?
Yes?
My name is Portland.
Oh, good morning, Mr. Portland.
I had the pleasure of meeting your wife last night, Mr. Temple.
Yes, so she told me.
I was wondering how the little lady was feeling this morning.
She's not too good, I'm afraid.
On a diet?
Strictly on a diet.
Well, now, that's too bad. If there's anything I can do for Mrs. Temple, please let me know.
That's very kind of you. Won't you sit down?
Well, thank you, sir. Does my smoking bother you?
Not at all.
Would you like a cigar?
Thank you. Not at the moment.
Mr. Temple, forgive me talking shop at this time of the morning, but have you heard of a private investigator, a detective by the name of Madison?
Madison? No?
I rather imagine he's pretty well known in your country.
Well, he can't be very well known, or I should have heard of him.
Are you sure you haven't? Madison, M-A-D-I-S-O-N.
Quite sure.
Well, now, that's very curious. Still, why should I worry if he gets the results?
Is he working for you?
Yes. Actually, he's employed by my London representatives, a man called Hubert Green.
What exactly is Madison doing?
He's trying to find out who I am.
Who you are?
Yes.
But you know who you are. You're Sam Portland.
Sure, I'm Sam Portland, Samuel L. Portland, president of the Portland Yeast Company. New York, Chicago, Detroit, Michigan, and all points west. I'm one of the wealthiest men in America, Mr. Temple. Did you know that?
I had a shrewd idea.
20 million bucks. And I don't know who I am. Mr. Temple, would you like to hear my story? Well, you're going to hear it anyway, so you might as well just relax. 35 years ago, on October 9th, 1914 to be precise, a Chicago policeman by the name of Dan Kelly arrested a young man for jaywalking. You know what I mean? Trying to beat the traffic?
Uh-huh.
The young fella turned out to be something of a problem. He was suffering from what the doctors called amnesia, or to put it bluntly, just plain loss of memory.
Go on.
The young man was acquitted, and the policeman, Kelly, took him under his wing. Kelly was convinced that sooner or later the young man's memory would return and he'd establish his identity. His memory never did return, Mr. Temple, and the young fella never established his true identity.
Go on, Mr. Portland.
I lived with Kelly for the best part of 7 years. We got along famously together. I guess he was like a father and the proverbial big brother rolled into one. In 1920, I moved to New York and started the Portland Yeast Company. The rest you can guess. It was just a long, long trail leading to $20 million.
What made you choose the name Portland?
Well, I had to call myself something. I was on Portland Avenue when Kelly arrested me.
But couldn't you remember anything?
Not a thing.
Hadn't you any marks of identification?
No. When I was arrested, I had $3 in my pocket, a white handkerchief, a fountain pen, and, curiously enough, an English penny.
An English penny?
Yes. I've still got it. Look, it's on my watch chain.
How did this fellow Madison fit into the picture?
I'll tell you. For years now, I've been making inquiries in the hope of finding things out about myself. If you were in my shoes, wouldn't you want to know who your parents were, where you came from, and why, on a certain afternoon in the year 1914, you were suddenly discovered wandering down Portland Avenue in Chicago? Well, 2 weeks ago, Hubert Green, my London representative, phoned through to New York. He told me that a man called Madison, a well-known private inquiry agent in London, had discovered certain facts concerning my identity. As you can imagine, this sort of thing wasn't exactly new to me, so I told Hubert to look into the matter.
Did he?
Yes, he did. 3 days ago, he cabled me. He said he was convinced that Madison was on the level. Frankly, I was rather surprised just now when you told me that you'd never heard of Madison.
Well, I can soon check on him for you. I've got some very good friends at Scotland Yard.
I hope that won't be necessary, but if it is, I'll let you know. Oh, by the way, if you happen to meet Mrs. Portland, don't mention this Madison story. She doesn't know anything about it.
No?
She takes the attitude that I should let the past take care of itself.
Well, that's certainly a point of view. Is your wife an American, Mr. Portland?
No, she's English, although she's lived in America for a great many years. As a matter of fact, we've only been married 6 weeks.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Is this a business trip?
Well, my wife thinks I'm making it because of Moira. Oh, Moira's my daughter by my first marriage, of course. She works in my London office. Actually, however, I must confess I'm coming over simply because of Madison. I'm sold on Madison, Temple. I believe he's found something. Hello? Here's George. Now, what does he want?
There's been a call from the New York office. I couldn't find you, so I told him to ring through this evening. You seem to be all steamed up about something.
Yes. All right, George. How's Mrs. Portland?
About the same. She don't look too good. I reckon she don't feel too good either.
Okay, I'll be right down. That's George Kelly. When poor old Dan died, I promised to find his son a job. He's my secretary. Well, I'll go down and see how the old lady's getting on. Nice to have met you, Mr. Temple. Let's all have a drink together sometime.
Yes, let's do that.
Say we meet in the cocktail bar at 7 o'clock. I'll bring Mrs. Portland along. How's that?
Fine.
And Don't forget to bring Mrs. Temple.
Well, I will if she can make it.
She'll make it all right.
Are you feeling all right, Steve?
Yes, darling.
You certainly look better than you did this morning.
I certainly feel better.
What can I get you, madam?
What would you like, darling? Have a champagne cocktail.
Is that a good idea?
It's a very good idea. 2 champagne cocktails.
Yes, sir.
I don't see Mr. Portland.
No, he hasn't arrived yet. Oh, here's his secretary.
Who's he with?
I don't know, unless it's Mrs. Portland.
She's rather young, surely.
Excuse me. Have you seen Mr. Portland?
No, we arranged to meet here at 7 o'clock, but I'm afraid he hasn't shown up yet.
I'm beginning to feel very worried, George.
There's nothing to worry about. He's probably found a quiet corner somewhere and fallen asleep.
That's not like Sam. He doesn't do that sort of thing. Are you Mr. Temple?
Yes.
I'm Stella Portland.
I'm glad to meet you, Mrs. Portland. This is my wife.
How do you do, Mrs. Temple? I hope you're feeling better now. My husband told me you were not too good this morning.
I'm much better, thank you.
Seasickness must be really dreadful. Fortunately, I'm a very good sailor. George, I do wish you'd go and look for Sam. I'm really dreadfully worried.
Okay, Stella.
I don't know what's happened to Sam. No one seems to have seen him since lunchtime.
Have you looked in the gymnasium?
My husband's hardly the sort of man to spend an afternoon in the gymnasium.
Well, what would you like to drink, Mrs. Portland?
May I have a scotch?
Yes, of course. What would you like with it?
Darling, here's the purser.
Excuse me, sir. Mrs. Portland?
Yes.
I'm the purser. The doctor would like to see you, Mrs. Portland.
To see me?
Yes.
But why? What is it? What's happened?
I'm afraid Mr. Portland's met with an accident, madam. One of the passengers found him in the swimming pool. The doctor seems to think it was a heart attack.
Where is he? Where is Sam?
Well,
Is he dead?
yes, sir.
Oh, no. No. No.
Paul, she's fainted.
Did you speak to the doctor?
Yes. He seemed pretty convinced it was a heart attack.
Did you see Portland?
Yes.
There was no suggestion of foul play.
So far as I could see, none whatsoever.
How did Mrs. Portland take it?
She seemed stunned by the whole business. You just couldn't get any sense out of her.
Do you think Portland died from a heart attack, Temple?
Yes, I do. But what caused the attack, I wouldn't like to say. However, I haven't quite finished my story.
Go on.
When we arrived at Southampton, Hubert Green came aboard. Green, you remember, was Portland's London representative. Well, I asked to see Green, and we met in the main lounge. Do sit down, Mr. Green.
This is a most distressing business. I've just been on the phone to Moira.
Portland's daughter.
Yes, by his first marriage, of course. Poor girl was heartbroken.
I rather expected Miss Portland to come on board with you.
Well, no, as a matter of fact, she couldn't leave town, so I... Do you know Moira?
No, but her father spoke to me about her. I understand she works for you.
Well, she's attached to my office, yes. Whether she does any work or not is open to question. Oh, poor Sam. He thought the world of Moira. How did this business happen? Do you think he did have a heart attack, or...
Or what?
Or was it an accident?
The doctor seems convinced it was a heart attack.
How well did you know Sam?
We met for the first and the last time, unfortunately, on Friday morning.
Sam was a great guy. Real American. It's the only way you can describe him.
Was he an American?
Oh, but of course.
I mean, was he born in America?
Why, yes, I've always thought so. I was always under the impression he was born in Chicago.
I think perhaps I ought to tell you, Green, before we go any further. Portland took me into his confidence. He told me why he was coming to England.
He did?
Yes.
Well, I hope you won't say anything about it, Temple. Now that the old boy's dead, I don't see any reason why we should go ahead. After all, it puts rather a different complexion on it. Don't you agree?
Yes. But if you've no objection, I'd like you to do me a favour.
By all means.
I want you to introduce me to Mr. Madison.
Mr. Madison?
Yes.
Who's Mr. Madison?
The private inquiry agent, the man who... Are you trying to tell me you've never heard of Madison?
Of course I haven't heard of him. Who is he?
2 weeks ago, you telephoned Portland that a private detective called Madison had discovered something about his identity.
Whose identity? Portland?
Yes.
Look here, I don't want to be rude, old boy, but, have you been drinking?
You've never heard of Madison?
I've already told you that I haven't.
Then why was Sam Portland in such a hurry to get to England?
Well, I thought you knew why. You said he told you. I was having trouble with Moira. I've been having trouble with her for weeks now. The girl's a little... Well, she gets completely out of hand. I tried to keep it from Sam, but in the end it was quite impossible. 3 days ago, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to stand any more of her damn nonsense. I cabled her father and offered my resignation.
I see.
If you don't believe me, ask George Kelly. He knows about Moira. He knows what's been going on. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got to see if the car's ready for Mrs. Portland.
Did you speak to the secretary, George Kelly?
Yes, Sir Graham. He confirmed Green's story. He said he'd actually seen the cable from Hubert Green offering Portland his resignation.
Did you ask him about Madison?
He'd never heard of him.
Sir Graham, how does Scotland Yard come into this?
Just over a week ago, one of my men, an Inspector James, received this note. Here we are, Steve. Read it.
An American millionaire called Sam Portland intends to visit England. He must be stopped from doing so. If not, a murder will be committed.
Is there a signature?
No, it's typed. No signature.
At first, we thought it was a hoax. Then James decided to take it seriously and contacted New York. They told him that Portland hadn't the slightest intention of coming to England.
He probably hadn't at that time.
We took no further interest in the matter until we heard that Portland was on his way over here and...
And had died of a heart attack.
Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
What is it, Charlie?
There's a Mr. Green to see you, sir. I didn't say you was in.
That's all right, Charlie. I'll see him.
Okay.
What can he want?
We'll soon see.
This way, please, sir.
Hello, Green. Come in. What can I do for you?
Well, I'm awfully sorry to disturb you, especially at this time of night, but I beg your pardon, sir, but haven't we met before?
My name is Forbes.
This is Sir Graham Forbes of Scotland Yard.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I was under the impression that we'd met somewhere. How do you do, sir?
How do you do?
I think you've met my wife.
Yes, we met at Southampton. Good evening, Mrs. Temple.
Good evening.
Temple, I've just left Mrs. Portland. She's in a pretty bad way, I'm afraid, and she seems very upset about, well, what seems to me rather a trivial matter.
What's Mrs. Portland upset about?
Well, it seems that somebody's stolen Mr. Portland's watch chain.
Stolen his watch chain?
Yes.
Was it very valuable?
From the way Stella's going on about it, I should say extremely valuable.
Well, she's probably thinking of the sentimental value.
I dare say she is, Mrs. Temple, yes, but surely at a time like this, to bother about a watch chain, it seems most odd.
Have you been in touch with the shipping line?
Yes, I've even been on to Southampton.
Well, quite frankly, I don't see what I can do.
I was wondering if by any chance you remember seeing the chain.
It was a thin gold chain with an English penny on the end. He kept the penny in his waistcoat pocket.
I don't know anything about that. All I know is I wish to goodness we could find the chain.
Yes, where is Mrs. Portland staying?
Oh, she's at the Ritz, but there's some talk of her coming down to my place for the weekend.
Is she alone?
No, George Kelly's with her, and Moira's moving in tomorrow morning.
Who's Moira?
It's her stepdaughter.
Have they met before, by the way?
Yes, they met about 6 months ago in New York.
Mr. Green, I understand from what Temple tells me that you're in charge of the Portland Corporation in this country.
Yes,
When did you last see Portland?
about 4 years ago.
Was Portland over here?
No, I was in America. So far as I know, this was Sam's first trip to Europe. Well, I'm sorry to have bothered you, Temple. I thought perhaps you might be able to throw some light on the missing watch chain.
Well, if I were you, I should get in touch with the purser.
Yes, I'll do that.
Can I give you a lift? I was just about to make a move.
Well, actually, I'm on my way to Park Lane. If you could drop me, I'd be very grateful.
Yes, certainly.
I'll see you to the door.
Good night, Mrs. Temple.
Good night.
Good night, Steve.
Good night, Sir Graham.
Is there anything you'd like, Mrs. Temple, before I pop off to bed?
No, that's all right, Charlie.
Okay, good night.
Good night.
I'm off to bed, Mr. T. Good night.
Good night, Charlie.
Paul, do you think the doctor was mistaken about Portland? Do you think we've all been mistaken and he was murdered?
No, I don't. But there's one thing I'm rather curious about, Steve.
What's that? The watch chain?
Yes. I'm going to have a word with Mrs. Portland.
Oh, darling, not at this time of night.
I've got a hunch it's important.
Good evening, Ritz Hotel.
Could I speak to Mrs. Portland, please?
Who is it calling?
My name is Temple.
One moment, please.
Hello?
Mrs. Portland, this is Paul Temple here.
Oh, Good evening, Mr. Temple.
Forgive me ringing at this time of night, Mrs. Portland, but I've just been having a chat with Mr. Green. He tells me that you've lost your husband's watch chain.
Is Hubert with you at the moment?
No, he's just this second left.
I've got the chain, Mr. Temple. There's no need to worry about it.
You mean you found it?
No, I mean it was never lost. I had it all the time.
Oh. Oh, I see.
I doubt very much whether you do see Mr. Temple. Are you likely to be passing my hotel tomorrow?
Yes, I might be. Probably in the morning.
I'd like you to drop in for a few minutes.
Yes, all right. Shall we say 11 o'clock?
That will do nicely. Good night, Mr. Temple.
Good night, Mrs. Portland.
What's happened?
She's got the watch chain. Apparently it was never lost.
Then Green was lying.
No, I don't think he was lying, darling. He really did think it was lost.
Paul, there's something very odd about this business. Very odd.
You're telling me. Let's go to bed, darling.
Paul, are you asleep?
Hmm?
I thought I heard something.
What?
I don't know. It sounded as if there was someone on the balcony.
Nonsense. Get to sleep, Steve.
Darling, I'm sure I heard something.
Of course you didn't.
Well, did you hear that? What is it?
You were right. There is someone on the balcony.
What are you going to do?
He's coming into the room. Now, don't move, Steve. Are you looking for anything in particular, my friend?
Eh?
Or is this just a social call?
Why? What
Put
the...
the light on, Steve.
Look out! He's got a gun!
No, you don't, my friend.
Oh, my wrist! Leave go, my wrist! Oh, leave go! Drop it! Please leave go!
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Just wait a minute, I'll tell you. Please leave go my wrist. Thank you. I came here because I wanted to...
Look out! Paul!
Oh.
Paul, darling!
Stay where you are.
Charlie! Help!
Shut up!
Charlie!
Did you hear me? Shut up!
Charlie!
Oh, my God. Oh, I've got to get out of here.
Paul.
Oh.
Paul, are you all right?
Oh. What happened? Where is he? Steve, where is he?
He's gone.
Ugh. What did he hit me with? A sledgehammer?
No, he just hit you.
Just hit me. Oh, my head.
I thought you were never coming, Paul. I've poured your coffee out.
Oh, thanks, dear.
I've told Charlie to make you an omelette. Is that all right?
Yes, that's fine.
How does your head feel this morning?
It's not too bad. I could kick myself for letting that fella get away.
Have you been in touch with the yard?
Yes, I spoke to Vosper. He's calling round after breakfast.
Paul, do you think you'd recognize that man again?
Yes, I think so. Wouldn't you?
He was dark, very big man, about 6'2", I should imagine. I think he had a moustache.
Yes, he had. I'd recognize the swine, all right.
Paul, do you think he had anything to do with this Portland affair?
I don't know.
I beg your pardon, ma'am.
Yes, what is it, Charlie?
Mrs. Portland is called. She wants to see Mr. Temple.
Yes, all right. Ask her in.
In here, sir.
Yes,
Okay.
I thought you'd arranged to see Mrs. Portland at her hotel.
I did. I said I'd drop in about 11.
Mrs. Portland.
Good morning, Mrs. Portland. We're just having some coffee. Won't you join us?
That's very sweet of you, Mrs. Temple. A cup of coffee certainly would be very welcome.
Won't you sit down? You look tired.
Yes, I'm afraid I didn't sleep very well last night. I've just been for a walk in St. James's Park. It's a lovely park, isn't it? You know, there's no place quite like London, is there? Sam would have loved it over here. Poor Sam.
Here's your coffee, Mrs. Portland.
Thank you.
I think we had an appointment at 11 o'clock.
Yes, we did, Mr. Temple. I'm awfully sorry dropping in on you like this.
That's all right. We're delighted to see you.
I thought we might be able to talk better here than at my hotel, you see. Mr. Temple, did Sam talk to you about his watch chain? Did he show it to you?
Yes, he did. Mrs. Portland, what is all this about? Hubert Green came here last night. He told me that you'd lost the chain, and yet when I telephoned you at your hotel...
No, I haven't lost it. It's here. I want you to have a look at it, Mr. Temple. Please.
Well?
Is that the chain that my husband showed you?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm pretty sure. It's got the penny on the end, and it looks exactly the same. Yes, this is it, all right.
Did my husband tell you about the penny?
He said it was in his pocket when a policeman called Dan Kelly arrested him for jaywalking. That was in Chicago in 1914.
Yes.
Your husband told me a rather remarkable story, Mrs. Portland. He said that from the moment he was arrested, his memory was a complete blank, and he simply couldn't...
What is it?
Paul, what's the matter?
What's the matter, Mr. Temple?
Steve, look at the date on this penny.
1919.
That was the first episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Robin Lang, Angus MacInnes, Greg Powry, Gareth Thomas, Richard Greenwood, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. We present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 2, The Manila.
Is that the chain my husband showed you?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yes, pretty sure. It's got the penny on the end, and it looks exactly the same. Yes, this is it, all right.
Did my husband tell you about the penny?
He said it was in his pocket when a policeman called Dan Kelly arrested him for jaywalking. That was in Chicago in 1914.
Yes.
Your husband told me rather a remarkable story, Mrs. Portland. He said that from the moment he was arrested, his memory was a complete blank, and he simply couldn't
What is it?
Paul, what's the matter?
What's the matter, Mr. Temple?
Steve, look at the date on this penny.
1919.
Why, that's impossible. If the penny wasn't made until 1919, Sam couldn't have had it in his pocket when he was arrested.
Mrs. Portland, when I met your husband the first morning we left New York, he told me a very unusual story. He said that although he was known as Sam Portland, Portland was not in fact his real name. He told me that he didn't know his name, didn't even know his true identity.
That's perfectly true. 35 years ago, Dan Kelly found Sam wandering aimlessly down Portland Avenue in Chicago. He was suffering from amnesia. He just couldn't remember a single thing. He couldn't remember who he was or where he'd come from. Is that the story my husband told you?
It's part of it, yes. But your husband also told me that Hubert Green, his London representative, had cabled him about a private detective called Madison.
Madison?
Yes. He was supposed to have discovered certain facts about your husband's past. But when I spoke to Green about this, he said he'd never heard of Madison.
I've never heard of him either. All this is news to me.
Your husband went so far as to say that Madison was his sole reason for coming over here.
But that's ridiculous. We all know why Sam wanted to come to England. Moira, his daughter, works over here, and the silly girl's been making a fool of herself. She's got herself engaged to a sleek young man called Chris Boyer, and I know for a fact that Sam was very worried about it.
Chris Boyer? The name's familiar.
He's a professional dancer. He works, if one can call it work, at the Manila Club.
Mrs. Portland, you still haven't told us about the watch chain.
Oh, yes, I was forgetting. Just before we left New York, Sam said a rather peculiar thing. Actually, I thought he was joking.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, if anything should happen to me, Stella, please take great care of my watch chain. You'll probably find it's the most valuable thing I possess.
Is that all he said?
Yes.
He didn't mention the penny at all?
No.
Mrs. Portland, why did you tell Hubert Green that the chain was missing?
Because he was so curious about it. All the way down from Southampton, he kept on asking me about the chain, throwing out veiled hints that he'd like to see it. I made up my mind that I wasn't going to let him see it.
Well, it looks a perfectly ordinary watch chain. The only curious point is the date on the penny.
Yes, that rather worries me. It almost makes me feel that Sam's story about himself was a fabrication.
Well, that's one explanation, of course. But there is another.
What?
Somebody's changed the penny. Hello, Sir Graham. I didn't expect you until 4 o'clock.
I've been lunching with some friends in Berkeley Square. They started to talk a lot of highfalutin nonsense about crime, so I walked out on them. Why the devil don't people realise I'm just a flat-footed copper?
Because you don't look like a flat-footed copper. What you need is a whiskey.
I couldn't agree with you more. Where's Steve?
She's been down at Bramley all the week. She's due back on the 3:15. Would you like soda with this or water?
Water, please.
Here we are.
Thank you.
I'm seriously thinking of selling Bramley Lodge. It's very inconvenient always trotting down to Evesham. I've got my eye on a place outside Dorking.
Certainly a very nice part of the world.
Yes, it is. Skull.
Skull.
Well, did you go to the inquest?
No, I was too busy. I said Vosper.
What happened?
For your information, Mr. Samuel L. Portland died from natural causes. The coroner was quite convinced there was no suspicion of foul play. Don't you agree?
Yes. And yet there's something behind this Portland business. I don't know what it is, but I'm quite sure.
Well, let's take the facts, Temple. Either Portland told you the truth about himself and about Hubert Green getting in touch with him, in which case Green lied to you when you saw him in Southampton, or Portland didn't tell you the truth, in which case...
In which case his story was a complete hoax.
Yes. You think Green is lying? And he did contact Portland about this mysterious Mr. Madison?
Yes. On the other hand, I'm not so sure that Green wasn't telling the truth about Mrs. Portland.
What do you mean?
I'm not so sure that Green is interested in the watch chain. I've got a hunch that the chain was lost for a short time, and Mrs. Portland kicked up a devil of a fuss about it.
In other words, she suspected Green without, in your opinion, any real justification.
Yes.
Well, so far as we're concerned, Temple, there just isn't a case. I'm putting the whole thing right out of my mind.
Well, I'm not. There's too many coincidences for my liking. First of all, you receive an anonymous letter stating that if Portland comes over here, a murder will be committed, and
But
then...
a murder hasn't been committed.
Well, one was very nearly committed, Sir Graham.
When?
5 nights ago, here, in this very flat.
Oh, but now look, just because a man breaks into your flat, it doesn't mean to say that he's...
I don't think it had anything to do with this business.
I'm sure it hadn't.
I don't know. Would you like another drink, Sir Graham?
No, thanks. I suppose I'd better be getting back to the yard. Heaven only knows there's enough to do.
So what are you on at the moment?
We're awfully worried about this counterfeit business. I expect you've read about it.
No, can't say I have.
It's serious, Temple. For several months now, the continent has been flooded with counterfeit notes, chiefly dollars, of course. About a week ago, the French people stated that in their opinion, the gang were not actually working from the continent, but from England.
You mean the French authorities think that the gang have their headquarters here, in this country?
Yes.
Do you think that?
2 months ago, I should have said no. Now, I'm not sure.
Who are the people behind this? Have you any idea?
I wouldn't say this to anyone else, Temple, but frankly, at the moment, we just haven't a clue.
Oh, well, there must be somebody behind it. Somebody with a first-class brain, if you ask me. Organisations don't run themselves, Sir Graham.
No. Well, now you know why I'm not particularly interested in the late Mr. Portland, to say nothing of his watch chain.
Excuse me. Hello?
Is that you, Paul?
Hello, Steve. Where are you?
Paul, listen. I'm in Harridge's. I want you to come here straight away. It's urgent, darling.
What's happened?
I came back from Bramley on the 11:40. When I got to Paddington, I was just getting into a taxi when I saw a man cross over to the taxi rank. At first, I couldn't place him. Then, suddenly, I realised who it was. Darling, it was that man.
Which man?
The man who broke into the flat. The man who knocked you out.
You sure?
Absolutely sure.
Go on, Steve.
I didn't know what to do. I waited a bit, and then, when I saw he was taking a taxi, I decided to follow him. Anyway, he's here, at Harridge's.
Oh, where are you actually speaking from?
I'm in a call box on the ground floor, you know, darling, next to the flower stall.
Where's the man?
He's in the snack bar. It's all right. He can't come out without my seeing him. In any case, he's only just given his order.
Has he seen you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, darling. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
What's happened?
Get your hat, Sir Graham. I'll explain in the car. Hello, Steve. Is he still here?
Darling, you've been quick. Hello, Sir Graham.
Steve, is he still here?
Yes, he's in the snack bar.
Are you sure it's the same man, darling?
Yes, I've told you. I'm quite sure. In any case, if you walk down the corridor over there, you can see him through the glass door. He's sitting at the counter.
Come along, Sir Graham. Come along, Sergeant.
Sir?
Well? Yes, that's him, all right.
The chap in the grey suit with the attaché case.
Yes, that's him, Sergeant. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Nice work, Steve.
Yes, you do very well, darling.
He's paying his bill, sir.
We'll pick him up as soon as he comes out.
And he's a pretty tough customer, Sir Graham. It's 100 to 1. He'll make a dash for it.
Is there another entrance near here?
Yes, just over on the right. It leads on to Knightsbridge.
You'd better watch your Temple.
He's probably armed, Sir Graham. I think the three of us ought to tackle this character.
No, you watch the door, Temple. Otherwise, if he gets away from us, we'll probably lose him.
I think he's right, Paul.
Yes, all right. You better come with me, Steve.
He's rather a long time coming out of the snack bar.
I hope there isn't another entrance to that place.
No, I'm sure there isn't. Oh, there he is. He's just come out.
The sergeant's talking to him.
Take your hands off me!
Look out, Steve. He's coming this way.
Stop him, sir! Stop him!
Oh, no, you don't, my friend.
What the devil do you think you're doing? Leave me alone! Take your hands off me! Do you hear what I say? Take your hands off me!
Look out, Paul. Mind the case. Mind...
Oh, bastard!
Paul, are you all right?
Yes, I'm only winded.
Where is he? Temple, where is he?
This way. Come on, Sir Graham.
He's given us the slip, Temple.
It looks very much like it.
Confound it. If only we'd held on to the fellow, you
Paul,
could have...
there he is.
Where?
She's right, sir.
He's just crossing the road, Temple.
He's making for the underground. Come on, Sir Graham. Come on, Sergeant. Sir? We'll head him off.
Paul, be careful.
He's spotted us, Temple.
Paul, that taxi. He's not looking where he's going. He's running straight into... Oh!
You ran headlong into it.
How dreadful.
Go back into Harridge's, Steve. There's no need for you to get mixed up in this. We'll meet you there in a few minutes.
Yes, go on, darling. We'll see you in the snack bar.
Come along, Temple.
Sorry we've been so long.
What happened?
He was killed, Steve.
Oh, dear.
It must have been instantaneous.
Darling, I feel awful.
Now, Steve, listen. There's no point in reproaching yourself about this. If he hadn't resisted arrest, this would never have happened.
Who was he? Do you know?
Well, according to this diary we found on him, his name's Mark Kendall. Address 78A Nelson Towers, Chelsea. I'll get Vosper to check that.
Is there anything else in it of interest?
No, there doesn't seem to be. Oh, just a minute. Apparently our friend had a date this evening.
Where does it say that?
Look, October the 19th, 8:45, the Manila. Appointment with C.B.
Manila? That's familiar.
Yes, don't you remember, darling? Mrs. Portland mentioned it. She said that her stepdaughter was engaged... That's funny.
What is it, Steve?
She said that her stepdaughter was engaged to a man called Chris Boyer, C.B. He's a professional dancer at the Manila Club.
I wonder if that's another coincidence, Sir Graham.
By George, this business is beginning to tie up, Temple. It's beginning to look as if Kendall really was mixed up in the Portland affair.
Then why did he break into our flat?
It's pretty obvious why he broke into the flat, darling. He was looking for something.
That watch chain?
It might have been the watch chain, Sir Graham.
Paul?
Yes, darling?
Wouldn't it be quite an idea if we went along to the Manila Club tonight and simply asked Boyer if he had an appointment with this man, Mark Kendall?
Quite an idea, but unfortunately neither of us happen to be members of the Manila.
We can easily get over that, Temple.
Oh, don't say you're a member, Sir Graham.
No, but Archie Brooks is. He'll fix you up all right.
Who's Archie Brooks?
One of our bright boys. We keep him on tap for occasions like this. I'll tell him to meet you both at the Manila at 10 o'clock. Is that all right?
Fine.
Well, I'll get back to the yard.
Don't forget the attaché case, Sir Graham. I picked it up when I came back into the store.
Oh, yes. I say, it's pretty heavy, isn't it?
You'd think so if you'd been biffed in the tummy with it.
Have you looked inside, Steve?
No, of course not.
What the devil was the fellow carrying about with him? Temple, look.
What is it? Why, the case is full of notes.
By Timothy.
They're dollar bills.
Can I take your hat and coat, sir?
Oh, thank you.
I'll be with you in a moment, darling.
Yes, all right, Steve.
Here's your ticket, sir.
Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, but are you a member?
No, I'm looking for a Mr. Brooks.
Oh, are you Mr. Temple, sir?
Yes.
He's expecting you, sir. He's in the cocktail bar.
Thank you.
My hat and coat, please.
Have you got the ticket, sir?
Oh, I've got the confounded thing somewhere. It's number 74. Here we are.
Hello, Green. I didn't expect to see you at the Manila.
Oh, hello, Temple. What are you doing here?
Well, strange though it may seem, I frequent this type of establishment.
You're welcome. It's not my idea of fun and games.
What is your idea of fun and games?
Do you play chess?
Indifferently, I'm afraid.
Well, that's my idea of fun and games.
Your hat and coat, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Are you a member here?
No, but Moira Portland is. I dropped in to have a word with her.
Oh, is Miss Portland here tonight?
Yes, she's with her fiancé, Chris Boyer. Silly girl's here every night. I wish to goodness someone would talk to her, Temple.
Huh? What about?
Well, she doesn't seem to realise how serious the situation is. Now that the old man's dead, I'm afraid a great deal of responsibility is going to fall on Moira. There's going to be a lot of work to do during the next 3 or 4 months. This is no time for gallivanting about. I'm afraid this chap Boyer is a very bad influence on her.
Is that what you've been telling her?
No, I've been trying to persuade her to come down to my place for the weekend. I've got Mrs. Portland staying with me and the old boy's secretary, George Kelly. There's a great deal to discuss, Temple.
Yes, I can well imagine it.
Moira refuses to come unless I invite this fellow Boyer. Why the devil should I invite Boyer? Quite apart from the fact that I can't abide the fellow, he's not a member of the family and he's got nothing whatever to do with the business.
Well, it looks as if he's going to be a member of the family, doesn't it?
Wouldn't be too sure about that. This isn't the first boyfriend Moira's lost her head over. Hello, here she is.
Is that Boyer?
Yes.
He's very good looking.
And he dances like a dream, in case you're interested.
Hello, Hubert. I thought you'd gone.
I'm just leaving, Moira. Oh, Moira, this is Mr. Temple.
How do you do?
How do you do?
We're just going into the bar, Hubert. Won't you join us?
No, thank you.
You can have an orangeade, darling.
I don't like orangeade.
I forgot. It's ginger ale, isn't it? Goodbye, Mr... Did you say your name was Temple?
Mr. Green said so, yes.
Yeah, I've heard Stella talk about you. You know who I mean, don't you? Stella Portland? My stepmother?
Yes, we met on the boat coming over from America.
That must have been cozy. Oh, this is my fiancé, Chris Boyer.
How do you do, Mr. Temple?
How do you do?
This is quite an honor. I've heard a great deal about you, sir.
From Mrs. Portland?
No, I mean from the newspapers. They say you're the most famous private detective in England.
That's very nice of them. I wonder if Mr. Madison shares that opinion.
Mr. Madison?
He's another private detective. At least so I'm told. Ah, here's my wife. Will you excuse me?
Well, goodbye, Hubert.
Goodbye, Moira. I hope I shall see you at the weekend. Both of you.
Why, that's charming of you. We shall be delighted. Shan't we, Moira?
Of course. Delighted. Goodbye, Hubert.
Ah, Temple. Now you see what I'm up against. Hello, Mrs. Temple. How are you?
Hello, Mr. Green. I thought I recognized you.
Are you ready, Steve? Our friend's apparently in the cocktail bar.
Yes, I'm ready.
Oh, goodbye, Temple. Goodbye, Mrs. Temple. Nice to have seen you again.
Goodbye. Is he a member here?
No, he only dropped in to have a word with Miss Portland.
Yes, that the girl I saw you talking to?
Yes. The rather sleek young man was her fiancé.
What, Boyer? Did you ask him about Kendall?
No, I didn't want to say anything in front of Green. Let's go in. Now, I wonder which one of these bright young things happens to be Archie Brooks.
I'll bet a $5 that's him.
Where?
Over there, propping up the bar.
Well, you'll lose your fibre. I'm much better looking than that. Mrs. Temple?
Yes?
I'm Archie Brooks. How are you? Temple?
Yes.
Glad to meet you. Heard an awful lot about you from Sir Graham. Deuced odd, we haven't met before.
Yes, it is. I hope this date hasn't inconvenienced you.
Not in the slightest. I'm usually in some pub or other at this time of night. By the way, shall we go straight to our table? This place is a bit like a bear garden.
Yes, I think it's a very good idea.
Can you push your way through the bods, Mrs. Temple, or shall I shout fire?
I think I can manage.
Hello, Chunky. How are you?
Hello, George. How's things?
Ghastly.
Where's Edith?
She's in Tenby, old boy. Been there for 6 months.
Tenby?
Yes.
How very odd.
Oh, it's all very difficult, Chunky. Tell you next time we meet.
Yes, all right. Cheers, George.
Cheers, old boy.
That was George Denson. We were at school together.
I rather gathered that.
Why did he call you Chunky?
Everybody calls me Chunky, Mrs. Temple. Do you remember those beautiful pineapple chunks we used to get? Well, I used to eat thousands of them when I was at school. Simply couldn't stop. Tin after tin. By golly, I've eaten some pineapple chunks in my time. Are you sure you won't have a liqueur, Mrs. Temple?
Quite sure.
What about you, Temple?
No, thank you.
Well, we'll have a cigar anyway. Robert, fetch us a decent cigar, will you?
Certainly, sir.
Did Sir Graham tell you why we wanted to come here tonight?
He said you wanted to see Chris Boyer. Can't imagine why.
Do you know him?
Vaguely. I know everyone vaguely, Mrs. Temple. That's my job.
What exactly is your job?
Didn't Sir Graham tell you?
No.
Then I should ask him. That's Chris Boyer over there. Shall I invite him over for a drink?
No, that might look obvious. Tell him Steve's been admiring his dancing and she'd like to have a dance with him.
He'll fall for that, all right. He thinks he's Casanova.
He's heading this way.
He walks exactly like a gigolo.
Hello, Chunky. How are you?
I'd like you to meet some friends of mine. Mr. and Mrs. Temple, Chris Boyer.
Mr. Temple and I have already met, but this is an unexpected pleasure, Mrs. Temple.
Now, Chris, don't start switching on the charm. Mrs. Temple's been admiring your dancing.
That's very nice of you, Mrs. Temple.
To me, you're just a rogue elephant with lumbago. But what's my opinion against so many?
You've taken the words right out of my mouth. Would you care to dance, Mrs. Temple?
I should love to.
Do you mind, sir?
No, of course not.
He's a conceited devil, isn't he?
Yes, but he knows how to dance.
Is Mr. Green a friend of your husband's, Mrs. Temple?
We met at Southampton. He came down to meet Mr. Portland.
Yes, of course. It was very sad about Mr. Portland. I was so much looking forward to meeting him.
Yes, he seemed to be a very nice man.
I don't remember seeing you here before, Mrs. Temple. Was your husband a member?
No, neither of us are members. I suppose we shouldn't be here, really. It was entirely Mr. Brooks's idea.
And a very nice idea, if I may say so.
Thank you.
It's not crowded tonight. Usually at this time it's impossible to get a table.
Is your fiancé a good dancer, Mr. Boyer?
Yes. About average, I suppose.
I was awfully sorry to read about that friend of yours.
Which one?
The one you had an appointment with.
Who do you mean?
Haven't you read about it? He was knocked down by a taxi outside Harridge's.
Who are you talking about? I've no appointment this evening, except with my fiancée.
Well, there must be some mistake. I thought this man was a friend of yours. His name was Mark Kendall.
I've never heard of him. What gave you the impression he was a friend of mine?
Something my husband said. I must have misunderstood him.
I'm afraid you must. Shall we go back to the table?
Mr. Boyer's furious with me, darling. He's a heavenly dancer, and I've simply trodden all over his feet.
Good.
You've done nothing of the sort. You're a very good dancer, Mrs. Temple.
I'll bet you tell that to all the girls.
Now, if you'll excuse me. Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye.
Good night, Mrs. Temple.
Good night.
Well, did you ask him about Kendall?
Yes. He said that he hadn't an appointment, that he'd never even heard of him.
Do you think he was telling the truth, Steve?
Yes, I do.
You bet she does. Old Chris is an accomplished liar. He lies even better than he dances. Oh, by the way, Sir Graham told me to give you a message. You know those notes? The ones in the attaché case?
Yes.
They were counterfeit. Damn good counterfeit, too. Personally, I couldn't tell the difference.
Did Sir Graham tell you about Kendall, about what happened?
Yes. I knew the fellow. He used to be an artist with one of the big advertising agencies. Temperamental sort of cove, from what I remember.
How well did you know it?
Oh, vaguely. Very vaguely. I say, look here, Temple. It's 11:45. Would you mind terribly if we broke the party up?
No, of course not. I was going to suggest that we made a move.
Have you got a date, Mr. Brooks?
Oh, good Lord, no. Well, I promised to pop in and see my sister. She's got a flat just round the corner.
Your sister?
Yes. She's been my sister for years.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, what is it, Robert?
There's a telephone call for Mrs. Temple, sir.
Well, for me?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you sure it isn't for Mr. Temple?
Quite sure, sir. The gentleman particularly asked for Mrs. Temple. He refused to give his name, sir.
Yes, all right, I'll take it.
There's a box in the hall, madam.
I'll come with you, darling. Goodbye, Brooks. Thank you for the dinner.
Delighted, old boy. Goodbye, Mrs. Temple. See you again, sometime.
I hope so. Thank you for a lovely evening. Who do you think it is on the phone, darling?
I should imagine it's Charlie.
Shall I take it?
Yes, of course.
Hello?
Hello, is that Mrs. Temple?
Yes?
This is George Kelly here. Do you remember me? We met on the boat coming over from the States.
Yes, of course I remember you. You're Mr. Portland's secretary.
I was his secretary. Yeah, you got the right guy, all right. Mrs. Temple, listen, there's something I want to say to you.
Well, I'm listening, Mr. Kelly.
Now, don't take this wrong. This isn't a melodramatic warning. It's just a nice piece of friendly advice. I took a liking to that husband of yours, Mrs. Temple. He looks a pretty regular fella.
Well, I think so. Of course, I may be prejudiced.
Regular fellas like that should be taken care of, you know? They shouldn't be allowed to go around pushing their noses into affairs which don't concern them.
What do you mean?
Tell your husband to keep out of this Madison case. If he doesn't, he's going to get mixed up with a bunch of very unpleasant customers.
You're unpleasant, Mr. Kelly. A little stupid, perhaps, but not unpleasant.
You don't know me, baby. Let's hope you don't get to know me. Remember what I've told you. You have a word with that husband of yours. If he's smart, he'll catch on.
Mr. Kelly, just supposing your wife told you...
I haven't got a wife, honey.
Well, supposing you had a wife, and supposing you were mixed up in the Madison case, and supposing she told you to keep your nose out of it, what would you do, Mr. Kelly?
I'd take a slow boat to China.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
What do you make of it?
It sounded to me as if he'd been told to contact you. Did you notice, Steve? He said, tell your husband to keep out of this Madison case. Not Portland, but Madison. Yet when I spoke to Kelly on the boat, he said he'd never even heard of Madison.
Yes, but who is Madison? If Portland was telling the truth and Madison's a private detective, he shouldn't be difficult to find.
Well, the yard can't find him. I've had Sir Graham on his track for almost a week now.
There's another thing, Paul. How did Kelly know that we were here at the Manila?
He might have seen us come in. Unless, of course...
Someone tipped him off?
Yes. Come on, Steve.
Where did you put the car?
It's round the corner in a side street.
Paul, I've been thinking about Hubert Green. Do you think he simply invented that story about Madison in order to get Portland over here?
And according to Green, he'd plenty of excuses for getting Portland over here.
His daughter, for instance.
Yes.
What do you think of Moira Portland?
I don't know what to think of her. She's either what Hubert Green says she is, the spoiled daughter of a millionaire, or...
Or what?
Or she's putting on a very good act.
Well, I can't say I like her fiancé, although he danced like an angel. Is this the car?
Yes.
You didn't leave your lights on?
That's funny. I could have sworn...
What is it?
Steve, listen.
Paul, what is it?
There's someone in the car, in the back seat. Look!
Paul! Paul, it's Archie!
Don't touch him.
Paul, there's a knife. It's covered in blood.
Steve, listen. Run back to the club and phone for an ambulance. Then find out if there's a doctor in...
Temple, don't. It's too late.
Do as I say, Steve.
No, wait. Listen, there's something I want to tell you. You know that man, the one that was killed, Mark Kendall?
Yes?
You thought he had an appointment with Chris Boyer, didn't you?
Yes, we did. It was in his diary, appointment with CB.
I'm the man he had the appointment with, Temple. I'm CB.
You are?
Chunky. Brooks. Everybody calls me Chunky.
Paul, what's happened?
He's dead.
That was the second episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Robin Lang, Greg Powery, Michael Mackenzie, Lucy Patterson, Gareth Thomas, Richard Greenwood, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 3, Eileen.
Steve, listen. Run back to the club and phone for an ambulance, then find out if there's a doctor
Temple,
in the...
don't. It's too late. I...
Do as I say, Steve.
No. No, wait. Listen. There's something I want to tell you. You know that man? The one that was killed. Mark Kendall?
Yes?
You thought he had an appointment with Chris Boy, didn't you?
Yes, we did. It was in his diary. Appointment with CB.
I'm the man he had the appointment with, Temple. I'm CB.
You are?
Chunky. Brooks. Everybody calls me Chunky.
Paul, what's happened?
He's dead.
Oh, no.
Steve, listen. You know Sir Graham's number. Go back to the Manila and phone him. Tell him exactly what's happened. If you can't get Sir Graham, get through to the yard.
Yes, all right, Paul.
There's no need for you to come back here, Steve. When you phone Sir Graham, pick up a taxi and go back to the flat.
No, I'll come back, darling. Don't worry. I'll be all right.
Now do as I tell you, Steve. I'll see you later. Is that enough soda, Sir Graham?
Yes, that's fine.
There you are.
Thank you. I'm terribly worried about Brooks, Temple. I'd always looked upon him as being completely trustworthy. Admittedly, he was extravagant as far as expenses were concerned, but we never doubted his integrity.
Well, I can only tell you what he said, Sir Graham.
He said that he had an appointment with Mark Kendall, that he was the CB referred to in the diary.
Yes.
There's no doubt in your mind that's what he did say.
No.
There's no doubt, Sir Graham. I heard it as well as Paul.
What exactly did Brooks do? Was he attached to your department?
Yes. He had rather a curious position, Temple. He started with us about 7 or 8 years ago. He had quite an unimportant job to start with. And then one day Superintendent Henson asked him to investigate the activities of a certain nightclub. We'd been having trouble with this particular club, and we wanted a detailed report of what was going on behind the scenes. Brooks got it for us. In fact, he made a howling success of the assignment. And since then, we've used him almost continually as a contact, a sort of...
Man about town?
Exactly. I was very fond of Brooks, Temple. I'm terribly sorry this happened.
Yes, I can understand that, but it does rather look as if he was mixed up in this affair, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. You know, though I may be dense, I don't quite see how all these pieces fit together. Take Kendall, for instance. Kendall was quite obviously mixed up in the counterfeit racket, and yet it was Kendall who broke into your flat. Now, why on earth should he do that? Was he looking for something? If he was, then it must have been the watch chain.
I'll go.
That's precisely what I said this afternoon, Sir Graham. Shall I tell you what I think? I think this Portland affair, the murder of Archie Brooks, and this business about the watch chain are part and parcel of the same case.
You think it all ties up with the counterfeit racket?
I do. And I'm convinced that we'll never smash that racket until we've solved the mystery of the penny and revealed the identity of Madison. Who is it, darling?
Paul, it's Inspector James.
Oh, hello, Inspector. Come in.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
Evening.
I don't think we've met before, Mr. Temple.
No, I don't think we have. Can I get you a drink, Inspector?
No, thank you, sir.
Well, have you finished?
We've finished with the car, sir. It's been photographed from more angles than Greta Garbo.
Did you find anything?
It rather looks to me as if he was attacked in the mews, sir, and then crawled to the car on his hands and knees. His clothes were in a pretty bad condition.
Do you think he knew that it was my car?
I very much doubt it, sir.
How far is the mews from where the car was parked?
About 30 yards. It's a cul-de-sac. I can't imagine what Chunky was doing down there.
Was Brooks a friend of yours, Inspector?
I don't think I'd exactly call him a friend, sir. I knew him a little better than most people at the yard because we once did a double act together at a police concert.
What did you do, James? Song and dance?
No, sir. I did impersonations. Brooks was the song and dance man, and very good he was, too. It's a shame about Brooks, sir.
Yes.
Have you any idea what time he left the Manila?
He must have left while you and Mrs. Temple were in the phone box, sir. The commissionaire said he saw you leave about 4 or 5 minutes after Brooks.
Well, he told us he intended to drop in and see his sister. Whether he was pulling our leg or not, I don't know.
Brooks hadn't got a sister, sir. He was an only child. He'd plenty of lady friends, though. That's probably what he meant.
Where did he live, James?
He had a flat in White Down Gardens. That's just off the Cromwell Road. As a matter of fact, I'm on my way there now.
Well, take a good look at the place. Go over it with a tooth comb, if necessary.
Yes, sir.
Would you mind if I went along with you, Inspector?
Well...
No, that's all right, Temple.
I'd be very pleased to have you, sir.
Fine. I'll get my things. Oh, you've got a car, I take it?
Yes, sir.
Steve, I'll get Charlie to pick my car up first thing tomorrow morning.
All right, darling.
We've taken it to the garage, sir, the one opposite the Manila.
Oh, good. I'll see you at the lift, Inspector.
Can we drop you, Sir Graham?
No, thank you. I've got my car.
Here it is. After you.
Thank you. Which button do I press?
The last but one. The bottom one's for the basement.
Oh, yes,
What's happened? I'm going up. Must be someone on the floor above.
Oh, I beg your pardon. I thought the lift was empty.
That's all right. You just caught us in time.
Yes?
We were just going down.
Oh.
Do you want the ground floor?
If you please.
My name is Temple. Have you taken Major Hartley's flat?
Yes, I moved in a few days ago. The day you came back from America, Mr. Temple.
Oh.
My name is Dr. Elsek.
Well, we've got the flat underneath yours, Doctor. Drop in for a drink one evening.
Thank you.
We shall be delighted to see you.
That's very kind of you.
Did you say Dr. Elsek, sir?
Yes.
Haven't we met before somewhere?
No, I don't think so.
Oh. Sorry, I thought we had.
After you, Doctor.
Oh, thank you. Goodbye.
It's all right, sir. I'll close the gates.
Do you know that fellow?
I've seen him somewhere before, but I'm dashed if I can place him.
Was the name familiar?
No, that's the extraordinary part about it. I don't think his name's Elsek at all. In fact, I'm sure it isn't.
Then what is it?
I don't know. So he's just moved in here?
Yes, he's taken the furnished flat. It belongs to a Major Hartley. Hartley's with the Foreign Office. He's been transferred to Washington.
I wish I could remember where I've seen the fellow. Elsek. I'm sure that's not the name.
I think there's someone coming.
Not before time.
Who lives here, do you know?
A chap called Scaly owns the place. Brooks has the top floor. Good evening. My name is...
What the devil do you think you're doing, man? Knocking on the door like that? Why, for goodness sake, don't you use the bell?
Where is the bell?
It's right under your nose, man. It's staring you in the face. There! You see? It's quite unnecessary to be making all that noise.
Are you Mr. Scaly?
I am.
Well, I'm a friend of Mr. Brooks.
Then I wish to goodness you'd have a word with your friend. Would you mind telling the gentleman to stop his fancy ladies from ringing up? There hasn't been a moment's peace in this house. His phone's been ringing since 7 o'clock this evening.
Yes, well, don't worry, Mr. Scaly. From now on, that's a thing of the past.
Oh, what do you mean?
I'm afraid Mr. Brooks has met with an accident.
Accident? What sort of accident?
He's dead.
I mean, I don't believe it. You're pulling my leg now. It's a joke, isn't it?
No, it's not a joke, Mr. Scaly. I'm Chief Inspector James of Scotland Yard. This is Mr. Temple. May we come inside?
Yes, of course. Archie Brooks, dead? I mean, I can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
How are things going, sir?
I've nearly finished. Was there anything in the bedroom?
Nothing of importance.
Well, there are quite a lot of papers here, Inspector, and 2 snapshot albums. I think you ought to go through them.
Yes, I'll take them back with me.
What time did Brooks go out, do you know?
Well, according to our Welsh friend downstairs, he went out shortly after 10 this morning. Or rather, yesterday morning.
Yes, but he must have come back to have changed into a dinner jacket.
Yes.
Is this the first time you've been here, Inspector?
Yes, it is. It's a very nice flat, isn't it? You know, I reckon Brooks must have had private income. You couldn't keep a place like this going without one.
Don't touch it, let it ring.
It's rather late for a call, isn't it? It's nearly 2 o'clock.
James, you said you could do impersonations. Do you think you could impersonate Brooks?
Chunky? Yes, I think I could.
All right, have a shot at it.
You mean you want me to answer the telephone?
Yes. Yes, go on. I'll listen in the bedroom on the extension.
Hello? Is that you, Chunky?
Yes. This is Chunky. Who's that?
Why, this is Eileen. Who did you think it was?
I'm sorry. I didn't recognize your voice.
You sound different. Is anything the matter?
No, I was asleep, that's all. Where are you? Where are you speaking from?
I'm at home. It's all right. He can't hear. He's in bed, asleep. Chunky, listen. I found out what you wanted.
Did you?
It's tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
Yes, 11 o'clock.
What?
I said 11 o'clock.
Oh.
Well, aren't you going to ask me where?
Where, Eileen?
Do you know Eppingdale?
Eppingdale? Yes, I know it. It's a village about 12 miles from Tenterden.
That's right. Well, there's a farm called Foxdale Farm. It's in the meadow, about 1.5 miles from the village.
No.
Did you hear what I said?
No. I'm afraid I didn't.
Oh, Chunky, darling, do try and listen. There's a farm called Foxdale Farm. It's in a meadow, about 1.5 miles from Eppingdale. Have you got that?
Yes.
Be there tomorrow night, Chunky, 11 o'clock.
I'll be there. Shall I see you, Eileen?
Me?
Yes.
No, of course you won't. Darling, what do you mean, shall you see me?
I meant some other time, perhaps.
I don't know. I've got to be careful. I've got to be very careful, Chunky.
Yes, I know.
Take care tomorrow, darling. You never know what might happen.
Well done, Inspector.
Did you hear?
Every word.
Phew, I feel like a piece of chewed string. I wondered what the devil she was going to say next. Do you think I got away with it?
Yes, you got away with it, all right.
I was dying to ask her who she was. Eileen. Eileen who, Temple?
Yes. I wonder if Scaly knows her.
There's just a chance that he might. Come along, Temple. Let's go down and ask him. Wake up, Scaly. Wake up.
Oh, it's you. I was fast asleep. Have you finished upstairs?
Yes, we finished. We're just leaving.
Mr. Scaly, was Archie Brooks friendly with a lady called Eileen?
Eileen? I can't recall an Eileen. That's a new one on me. Are you sure you've got the name right?
Quite sure.
There was a Betty, a Judy, a Phyllis, a Dorda, there was a Pat. No, I can't recall an Eileen. Eileen what? What's the other name?
Yes, that's the point, Mr. Scaly. What's the other name?
Pass the toast, darling.
Hmm?
I said pass the toast.
Oh.
You're very quiet.
What do you mean, quiet? What do you expect me to be like at 8:30 in the morning? Don't be so bright.
What's the matter? You got out of bed on the wrong side or something?
I'm just annoyed, Steve.
What are you annoyed about?
I jumped to conclusions, the wrong conclusions.
About Archie Brooks?
Mm.
Yes, I thought you had.
Why? What did you think?
Well, I thought Brooks was mixed up in this business, but I felt sure he was on the right side.
What made you so sure?
No, just intuition.
Oh, but Timothy, don't tell me that good old intuition's on the warpath again.
Well, the way things are at the moment, you can certainly do with it.
Yes, how right you are.
Who was that on the phone a few minutes ago?
The inspector. He'd just been talking to Sir Graham about last night.
Is Sir Graham going down to Eppingdale?
Yeah, we're all going. I told Sir Graham we'd dine with him and then run down in the car.
Does that include me?
Is there the slightest chance of my being able to go without you?
Not the slightest.
Then it includes you. By the way, Steve, have you seen the young fellow who has taken the flat above?
Yes, I caught a glimpse of him yesterday morning. They say he's taking it on a 6-month lease. Supposed to be paying 30 guineas a week.
30 a week? Sure. Dr. Elzek must have a pretty flourishing practice.
Is he a doctor?
Well, he said he was. I met him in the lift when I went down with Inspector James. James thought he recognised him.
He looks a pleasant sort of person, but he certainly doesn't look like a doctor.
Oh, he'll probably turn out to be an osteopath or a chiropodist. I've asked him to drop in for a drink one evening. Oh, golly, I'm still tired. Oh,
darling, you answer that. I can't be seen like this.
No, you certainly can't.
Give me a second and I'll slip into the bedroom.
Why, hello, Green.
Hello, Temple. Sorry if I've interrupted your breakfast.
No, we've just finished. Come in.
It's a bit of an impertinence dropping in like this, but I did rather want to see you, and since I was passing the door, I thought I might as well.
It's not an impertinence at all. Delighted to see you. Would you like some coffee?
No, no, thank you.
You sure?
Quite sure.
Well, let me take your things.
No, I won't keep you a minute, Temple. I only dropped in because, well, I'd like you and Mrs. Temple to come to my place for the weekend. Mrs. Portland, Moira and George Kelly are coming down. We'd like you to join us, Temple.
Well, I don't know. This weekend happens to be rather awkward. You see, we did think of...
It's awfully difficult to think of excuses, isn't it? Especially on the spur of the moment.
It's not that, but... Look, Green, why are you inviting us? Let's face it, we're not exactly friends, are we? Barely acquaintances.
Shall I be frank, Temple?
I would prefer it.
The first time I saw you at Southampton, I said to myself, now, there's a man I would like to get to know. An intellectual, but at the same time a man of action. It's a combination I've always admired.
I thought we were going to be frank with each other.
What do you mean?
The first time you met me, you thought I was a confounded nuisance. So far as you were concerned, I was an unmitigated bore pushing my nose into an affair which didn't concern me.
Was that the impression I gave you?
I'm afraid it was.
Well, if you must know, I particularly want Moira Portland to come down to my house this weekend. We've quite a lot of family business to discuss, and without Moira, the whole thing would be quite pointless.
Yes, you told me that last night. You said she wouldn't accept your invitation unless you included a boyfriend.
Moira telephoned me this morning. She said we could expect her on one condition.
And what was that?
That you and Mrs. Temple were invited.
But why on earth should Moira Portland insist that my wife and I spend the weekend with you? We barely know the girl.
I asked her that. She said that if you came down for the weekend, she'd feel quite sure that nothing unfortunate would happen.
Nothing unfortunate?
Oh, didn't I tell you? She's under the impression that her life's in danger. Apparently, she's been under that impression for weeks now. It's almost a joke at the office.
Do you think her life's in danger?
Of course not. Why should it be?
Where is your place, Green?
Oh, it's just outside Leatherhead. Quite a nice little place. I've got about 100 acres.
Oh, it does sound a nice little place.
Temple, I'm sorry to have issued this invitation in such an unorthodox manner, but the fact is I'm in rather a hole. I've got to please Mrs. Portland and at the same time keep on friendly terms with Moira. It's not easy.
I'm quite sure it isn't. And how does George Kelly fit into the picture?
Well, as you know, Kelly was Portland's secretary. He now appears to have taken on the job of financial advisor to Mrs. Portland. In short, he's making a damn nuisance of himself.
It does sound a jolly little house party.
It certainly could do with an uplift, if that's what you mean.
What do they call your place?
Oh, it's called Brown Acres. It's just off the main road, about 2 miles this side of Leatherhead. Why?
You can expect us on Saturday. We'll be there in time for lunch.
Well, that's jolly sporting of you, Temple. I appreciate it. What made you change your mind?
Well, the first time I saw you at Southampton, Mr. Green, I said to myself, now there's a man I would really like to get to know.
Take it steady, Temple.
Are you nervous?
Well, we're not in a desperate hurry. It's only just gone 9.
Where are we meeting, Inspector James?
I said we'd pick him up at the crossroads near Tenterden. It's about 10 miles this side of Eppingdale.
When did he go down there?
I sent him down this morning.
Was that a good idea?
I think so. James is a good man, Temple. He's discreet.
Is he alone?
No, he took a Sergeant Carver down with him. Carver's a tough bird. There's nothing he likes more than a spot of action.
I remember Carver. He was with us on the Gregory affair.
Yes, that's right.
Have you heard from the inspector?
He phoned through to the yard about 3:30 this afternoon, but unfortunately I was out. He didn't leave a message. I say, it's looking rather stormy, isn't it?
Doesn't look too good.
What's this place called?
I think this is Biddenden.
Yes.
Ooh, did you see that?
What?
It was lightning, wasn't it, Steve?
Yes, I think it was. Ooh! You'd better put the window up, Sir Graham.
No.
By Timothy, it's certainly coming down.
Ooh! Did you see that, darling? Again?
Yes.
Don't you like lightning, Steve?
I'm crazy about it.
We ought to be somewhere near the crossroads.
I'm not so sure we're on the right road.
Slow down, darling. There's a signpost.
Can you see, Steve?
It says something about Tenterden, but I can't see what the...
What is it?
Steve, what is it?
There's someone in that hedge, Paul. Look, just past the signpost.
Where?
I don't see anyone.
She's right, Sir Graham. Look.
Yes. Is it Inspector James?
I shouldn't think so.
It's probably a tramp sheltering from the rain.
Put your window down, Steve.
Hello there. Hello there.
Is that you, James? Let's have a look, Temple.
fellow's asleep by the look of things.
Temple.
Yes. Let's turn him over.
He's been stabbed, look.
Yes,
That's exactly what happened to Chunky Brooks, Temple.
exactly. It's even the same sort of knife.
Paul? What is it? Darling, what's the matter?
Don't let Steve see him. Quickly, Temple.
Go back to the car, Steve.
What's happened?
It's Inspector James. He's been murdered. Good evening, Sergeant.
Oh, you gave me quite a turn, Mr. Temple. I wonder who the devil it was. Good evening, sir.
You know my wife, Sergeant Carver?
Evening, Ma'am.
Good evening, Sergeant.
Is that Foxdale Farm?
Yes, that's it, sir. At the bottom of the meadow.
You've picked a pretty good observation point.
Oh, yes, I had a good scout round. You can see pretty well everything from here, sir. Did you pick the inspector up, sir?
Yes, we picked him up. He's with Sir Graham.
Well, how did you get down here?
I parked my car at the top of the lane. As a matter of fact, we've had a job finding you. We've been strolling around for the past half hour.
Oh, I told the inspector I'd be here, sir. Isn't he with you?
No. What time did he leave you, Carver?
About 7:45.
Have you been up here all day?
Off and on. Got here about 10:30 this morning. I suppose the inspector told you the farm's deserted.
How do you mean deserted? Doesn't anyone live there?
No, Ma'am. A doodlebug hit it during the war, and it's been derelict ever since. The land's farmed by a man called Fenby. He lives the other side of Tenterden.
Ah. Have you seen anyone?
Well, not a soul.
Anything suspicious?
Nothing, sir. Are you sure this isn't a wild goose chaser?
I don't think so, Carver. James was murdered. We found his body in a ditch the other side of Tenterden.
What? Good Lord, no, sir. You're joking.
I'm not joking, Carver. He was stabbed.
But it seems incredible, sir. He was here at 7 o'clock. We were together. We sat over there on that bank and smoked a cigarette.
Carver, listen. Did anyone see you this morning? Did you stop in the village on the way down here?
Oh, yes. We stopped at a cafe in the High Street and had a cup of coffee.
And what time would that be?
Well, about 10 o'clock. Of course, the inspector made a trip into Eppingdale this afternoon. I believe he made a phone call.
Yes, I heard about that phone call. Unfortunately, What's that?
It's a plane.
Well, there he is. Look. He's flying pretty low, isn't he? What the devil's he trying to do?
What time is it?
I make it just gone 11.
Yes. It's just about 5 minutes past. Good Lord, do you think this is it, sir? Do you think this is what we've been waiting for?
I don't know.
It looks to me as if he's trying to come down.
Yes.
I've got a hunch he's looking for something.
He's probably expecting a light.
Yes. I don't see one.
He's coming down, Paul.
He's going to land in the meadow.
Why, Timothy, that won't be easy.
He's nearly down.
Yes, he's made it all right.
Right, Timothy, this fellow knows his stuff. That's about the best. Oh!
Paul!
He's going to hit the bank. Come along, Sergeant.
It's hopeless, sir. We'll never get near it.
The heat's terrible.
Oh, the whole thing must have just disintegrated.
Oh, Paul!
Don't get too near, Steve.
Paul, can't we do something? We can't just stand here and watch.
It's too late, Steve. There's nothing we can do. Now, you stay here, Sergeant. I'll drive back into Eppingdale and see Sir Graham.
Yes, all right, sir.
We should be back in about half an hour.
Very good, sir.
Come along, Steve. What's that you've got?
I've just picked it up. It must have been thrown from the plane.
What is it?
It's a key ring. The keys are buckled, but there's a penny on the ring, darling.
Penny?
Yes. It's rather bent.
Let me have a look at it.
Well?
It's the same one that Sam Portland had.
What do you mean?
It's the same date, Steve. 1919.
Hello, Temple. Welcome to Brown Acres.
I'm afraid we're a little on the late side, Green. We didn't leave town till just after 11.
Nonsense. You're in perfect time. Delighted to see you, Mrs. Temple.
Hello, Mr. Green.
Leave your things in the car, Temple. My man will take care of them.
Oh, thank you. My word, it's quite a place you've got here.
I think you'll like it.
Have all your guests arrived?
Yes, they're all here, including Moira. I'm glad to say she's behaving herself for a change.
What a lovely terrace.
Do you like it?
It looks heavenly.
I'm quite proud of Brown Acres, Mrs. Temple. It'll be a pleasure to show you around. Now, would you like to go to your room straight away, or would you like a drink? Oh, come along. Let's join the others on the terrace. I'm sure you're both dying for a drink.
Oh, you're crazy, Stella. How can you say Americans haven't got a sense of humor? Would you say Thurber hadn't got a sense of humor? George Kaufman? Now you take the Marx Brothers.
No, darling, you take the Marx Brothers.
Are you still lecturing, George?
Well, Stella's just been telling us. Why, hello, Mrs. Temple. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Kelly.
Hello there.
Good morning, Kelly. How are you?
I'm fine. I think you know Mrs. Portland?
Yes, of course. How are you, Mrs. Portland?
I'm quite well, thank you.
And Mrs. Green?
I don't believe...
No, I don't think you've met my wife, have you, Temple? Darling, this is Mr. and Mrs. Temple.
Hello, Mrs. Temple. Delighted to meet you. It's awfully nice of you both to join us for the weekend.
It's awfully nice of you to ask us.
We've been looking forward to it.
Do sit down.
What would you like to drink?
May I have a gin and French?
Yes, of course. Mr. Temple?
Scotch?
A man after my own heart.
Isn't it a heavenly view, darling?
Do you like it?
Oh, I think it's wonderful, Mrs. Green.
Oh, please. Not Mrs. Green.
For some obscure reason, my wife dislikes being called Mrs. Green. I've never discovered why.
Darling, don't be silly.
But it's true, my dear.
Nonsense. None of my friends call me Mrs. Green, you know that. It's always Eileen.
That was the third episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Richard Greenwood, Robin Lang, Eliza Langland, Greg Powry, Gareth Thomas, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. We present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 4, Hubert Green Entertains.
I don't think you've met my wife, have you, Temple? Darling, this is Mr. and Mrs. Temple.
Hello, Mrs. Temple. Delighted to meet you. It's awfully nice of you both to join us for the weekend.
It's awfully nice of you to ask us.
We've been looking forward to it.
Do sit down, Mrs. Temple.
What would you like to drink?
May I have a gin and French?
Yes, of course. Mr. Temple.
Scotch, please.
A man after my own heart.
Isn't it a heavenly view, darling?
Do you like it?
Oh, I think it's wonderful, Mrs. Green.
Oh, please, not Mrs. Green.
As for some obscure reason, my wife dislikes being called Mrs. Green. I've never discovered why.
Darling, don't be silly.
But it's true, my dear.
Nonsense. None of my friends call me Mrs. Green. You know that. It's always Eileen.
Well, would you mind mixing the drinks, Eileen? I'm sure our guests are thirsty.
Did you have a pleasant journey, Mrs. Temple?
Well,
If you overlook the fact that we had a puncture outside Kingston, we had a very pleasant journey.
Did you say Scotch, Mr. Temple?
You did, and so did I, Mrs. Eileen.
George, I think you've had quite enough for one morning.
Well, it's a point of view, Stella. Okay.
Here we are, Mrs. Temple.
thank you.
Temple?
Oh, thank you.
I suppose all this is quite new to you, Mr. Kelly.
What do you mean? The Scotch?
No, I mean the countryside.
Oh, yeah. It kind of takes a bit of getting used to. I like it, though. I like all this green stuff.
Is this the first time you've been over here?
Yeah. I nearly came over with the Cody boys in '36, but I changed my mind at the last moment. Wish I hadn't now. It might have been fun.
The Cody boys?
Who are the Cody boys?
It was a circus outfit. Boy, did we travel. We toured every state in the Union.
What were you doing with a circus outfit?
Don't tell me you were the bareback rider, Mr. Kelly.
Well, I wasn't the bearded lady.
What did you do?
Oh, I was a sort of general factotum, handyman. I started the outfit with a knife-throwing act. Boy, was it corny.
A knife-throwing act?
You mean you used to throw knives?
That's right. You know the sort of thing. A gal stands up against a door and some phony-looking character throws a lot of knives at her. It's a good act. The knives just miss. It's a bad act. Well, you're pretty soon out of business.
What happened to your act, Mr. Kelly?
We folded. I was no good. I couldn't get near the gal. I was too darn scared. One night, I missed the gal, the door, and every darn thing. I just wasn't cut out for show business.
What were you cut out for, George?
Why, didn't you know? I'm a financial wizard.
Here's Miss Portland and her fiancé.
Hello, Moira. Where have you two been?
We've been for a walk. Any objections, Hubert?
No, of course not, but I wanted you to meet Mr. and Mrs. Temple.
We've met. We met at the Manila.
I don't think you've met my wife, Miss Portland.
Hello there. Oh, no. How do you do?
Hello there. How do you do?
Mrs. Temple, this is Chris Boyer.
Oh, we're old friends, aren't we, Mrs. Temple?
Well, it's nice of you to say so. After the way I danced the other night, I'm surprised we're even on speaking terms.
Chris is used to that sort of thing. I'm the world's worst dancer. Aren't I, sweetie?
Positively the world's worst.
Why, you beast, Chris. Come along, Mrs. Temple. Let me show you to your room.
Thank you.
Would you like a drink, Moira?
Yes, I should like a gin and a bonnet.
And what about you, Boyer?
Have you a Cinzano?
Not out here, but I can get it for you.
No, it's all right. I'll have a gin and French.
George?
Have I your permission to have another scotch, Stella?
No.
Oh, go on. Let the poor fellow have a drink. Won't do him any harm. You won't start throwing knives at us, will you, George?
Not if you're nice to me, I won't.
I think you'll be comfortable, Mrs. Temple. I'm sure you shall. If there's anything you'd like, just let me know.
Thank you. It's a lovely room, isn't it, darling?
Delightful. I was just admiring the view. You seem to be able to see for miles.
Yes. When I was a little girl, we used to climb on the roof and stay there for hours on end. We had picnics up there in the summer. On a clear day, you could see right across the country.
How long have you been here, Mrs. Green?
Well, off and on. I suppose I've been here all my life. You see, the house belonged to my father, Lord Daleston. He died in 1945. After that, I shut the house up for a short time and went abroad. I was in Naples when I met Hubert.
When was that?
Just over 2 years ago.
Mrs. Green... Oh, sorry. I forgot you don't like to be called that.
What were you going to say?
I was going to ask you a question, a rather personal one, I'm afraid.
It's all right, Mr. Temple. Please go on.
Was Archie Brooks a friend of yours?
Archie Brooks?
Yes.
I'm afraid I've never heard of anyone called Archie Brooks.
His friends called him Chunky. He had a flat in White Down Gardens.
What do you mean he had a flat in White Down Gardens?
Brooks is dead. He was murdered.
No. No, I don't believe it. You're not serious. You're lying because you want to find out exactly
I'm telling you the truth, Mrs. Green, because I want to find out how well you knew Archie Brooks.
When was he murdered?
Tuesday night. About 2 hours before you telephoned.
But I spoke to him. I told him... That wasn't Chunky. That wasn't Chunky on the phone. I suspected it. I thought there was something different. Who was it? Who impersonated him?
An Inspector James.
I told him about Foxdale Farm, didn't I? I told him that... How did you know I was a friend of Chunky's? Were you at the flat when I telephoned?
Yes, I heard the whole conversation. I suggested the impersonation.
You might have spared me that. You might have had the decency to... Who murdered Chunky?
The same person that murdered Inspector James.
Was James murdered?
Yes.
When?
The night we went down to Eppingdale.
How? How was he murdered?
They were both stabbed.
Oh, this is terrible. Oh, this is even worse than I thought.
Eileen, listen. Who was the pilot? The man that landed at Foxdale Farm?
I don't know.
Then why did you tell Brooks to go down there?
I had to tell him because...
Because what?
I'm not going to say any more. Please don't ask me.
Don't you see, I've got to ask you these questions. I've got to know what's behind all this. Now tell me the truth. Why did you tell Chunky Brooks about Eppingdale?
I had to tell him. I made a promise that once I knew when... Please leave me alone, Mr. Temple. I can't talk now. I'm too upset. I was awfully fond of Chunky.
Paul, don't go on with this.
Was Brooks a close friend?
Yes. We'd known each other ever since we were children. He was always very kind to me.
Eileen, I want you to have a look at this.
What is it?
It's a penny. My wife found it down at Eppingdale. It's attached to a keyring. Have you ever seen anything like this before?
What do you mean?
Have you ever seen a penny like this on a keyring or a watch chain or perhaps even on a bracelet?
No. No, I don't think so.
Are you sure?
Yes. I'm quite sure.
Are you feeling better now?
Yes.
Don't you realize that I'm only trying to help you? Sooner or later, whether you like it or not, you're going to tell me all you know about this business. Why don't you tell me now?
Mr. Temple, listen. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come to your room tonight. Late tonight when the others are in bed.
But won't your husband miss you?
No. I have my own room. My room's just along the corridor. I'll come tonight, Mr. Temple.
Can I depend on that?
Yes, I promise. Honestly.
All right.
I think there's someone coming, Paul.
Oh, dear, I look dreadful. What is it, Hubert?
Lunch is ready, my dear.
Did you pack that white handkerchief, darling? The silk one?
Yes, here it is.
Oh, thanks. I enjoyed that walk through the woods this afternoon.
Yes, so did I. Does this dress look all right?
Yes, of course it looks all right. It ought to look all right, considering what you paid for it.
Oh, now, don't you start on that. Zip the back up for me.
What did Boyer have to say? You seem to be putting your heads together rather a lot.
Oh, nothing. He told me he thought I'd make a very good dancer.
By Timothy, the old technique. I wouldn't trust that tailor's dummy as far as I could throw him.
Did you notice Moira Portland this morning when he said she was the world's worst dancer? She looked furious.
Moira Portland's always looking furious. I'm inclined to agree with Green about that young woman.
Pass me that hairbrush, darling.
Oh. Yeah.
Paul, I don't know whether you've realised it or not, but George Kelly's avoiding us. He didn't even have tea with us this afternoon.
He's probably frightened that one of us might mention that telephone call.
Yes. Why do you think he made it, darling? He must have known that sooner or later we'd ask him about it.
He obviously made it because...
Come in.
Excuse me.
Oh, come in, Green.
There's a telephone call for you, Temple.
For me?
Yes, it's a personal call from London.
Oh. Who is it, do you know?
I'm afraid I didn't ask.
Oh.
You can take it in my room if you like.
Oh, thanks. I shan't be a moment, darling.
Here we are. The phone's by the bed.
Oh, thanks.
Can you find your way back, all right?
Yes, rather.
When you and Mrs. Temple are ready, we're having cocktails in the library.
Fine. Hello?
Is that Paul Temple?
Yes?
Speaking personally?
Yes.
Hold the line, please. You're through.
Hello? Hello?
Mr. Temple's on the line now. Go ahead, please.
Hello? Is that you, Temple?
Oh, hello, Sir Graham.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Sorry if I've interrupted your dinner.
Oh, you haven't. We were just going down.
You did say to give you a ring, remember?
Yes, of course.
I think we're making headway, Temple, at last.
Oh, good. I thought you sounded optimistic.
Oh, I don't want to be too optimistic, of course.
What's happened?
Are you alone?
Yes.
Is it all right to talk, I mean?
Yes, I think so.
Well, Temple, listen. We've discovered the identity of the pilot. We know why he came here, and we know who was supposed to have met him at Eppingdale.
Good. Oh, go on.
We also know the real name, of Dr. Eltsek.
How did you discover that?
We came across his photograph in a snapshot album, the one you found at Archie Brooks.
Oh, I see.
His real name is Viner. He was mixed up in the Basel counterfeit racket in 1937.
Are you sure of that?
Yes, I'm quite sure.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
There's no point in picking him up. In any case, we've nothing on him at the moment. You can't arrest a man for paying 30 guineas a week for a furnished flat.
Are you watching him?
Yes. There's a man on the block night and day. You'll probably spot him when you get back on Monday morning.
Well, you seem to have been pretty busy since I left town, Sir Graham.
Yes. Get in touch with me as soon as you get back.
Yes, I'll do that.
How are things at your end?
Well, so far, we're having a very quiet weekend.
Good. I hope it stays that way. We'll probably see you on Monday.
Yes, all right, Sir Graham. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Oh, I was just going down, darling. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Who was that on the phone?
Sir Graham.
Oh. Did he want anything special?
No, he just wanted to chat.
What's the joke?
I've got a hunch we shall find somebody rather on edge this evening, Steve. It'll be interesting to see who it is.
Why do you say that?
Before I left town, I made arrangements for Sir Graham to phone and pretend that the Yard had discovered the identity of the pilot, the man that crashed at Eppingdale. I also told him to tell me that they'd discovered who the contact was.
But what was the point of that? Why should he say those things if they weren't true?
Well, I was pretty certain that any telephone conversation I had would be listened to, and I wanted the eavesdropper to believe that the Yard had discovered the pilot's identity.
Do you think someone did listen to your conversation?
Yes, I'm sure of it. I heard a receiver being lifted.
Was it Green?
It might have been Green.
Did Sir Graham say anything else?
Yes, he did. He said that they'd found out about Dr. Elzek.
You mean the man who has the flat above ours?
Yes. Apparently his name's Viner.
Did Sir Graham tell you that on the phone?
Yes, and that's what I don't understand. He knew as well as I did that the conversation was being listened to.
He probably wants to use Elzek or Viner or whatever his name is as a bait. If the people behind this affair think that Elzek's been found out, they'll probably try to get rid of him.
Yes.
And that's when Sir Graham will step in.
There might be something in that, Steve. I shouldn't be surprised. Come along, darling, let's go down.
Paul, who do you think is behind all this? Hubert Green? Stella Portland? George Kelly?
You've forgotten your boyfriend, Chris Boyer.
Oh, he's just a gigolo, darling. He couldn't have anything to do with this.
I'm not so sure.
Why do you say that?
He dances far too well for my liking.
Ah, so here you are, Mrs. Temple.
Oh, dear, are we the last?
No, Miss Portland isn't down yet.
I don't know what's keeping Moira. She was ready ages ago.
What would you like, Mrs. Temple?
May I have a gin and French?
Certainly. Temple?
If you'd like a scotch.
No, I'd like a glass of sherry.
Would you like a dry sherry?
Yes, please.
What a lovely dress, Mrs. Temple.
How funny you should say that. I was just admiring it.
Did you get it in New York? It's really charming.
No, as a matter of fact, I bought it in London only a few weeks.
Come in, Moira. We've been waiting for you.
Where on earth have you been, Moira? You were ready ages ago.
I've been for a walk. Is there any particular reason I shouldn't go for a walk before dinner?
No, I suppose not.
Say, you need a drink.
Excellent advice, Mr. Kelly. If a slight understatement. I need several drinks.
What would you like?
It's all right, I'll mix it.
I'm mixing the drinks, Moira. What would you like?
I'll have a gin and French.
Have you been drinking already?
What do you mean, already? I've had 3 very small pink gins, if that's what you mean.
Where on earth did you have those?
I drove down into the village.
I thought you said you'd been for a walk.
I drove down into the village. I got out of my car and I walked into a very large pub and ordered 3 very small pink gins. Is there anything else you'd like to know?
Yes, there is.
What?
Where's my sherry?
Oh, I'm sorry, Temple. Here we are.
Thank you.
Mrs. Temple. Oh, you asked for a gin and French, didn't you? I'm so sorry.
It's all right, I'll have a sherry.
No, certainly not. I'll mix you another.
Oh, then we won't waste the sherry, Hubert.
Boy, that's drinking.
Moira, don't be stupid. That's not the way to drink sherry.
It's the way I drink it. Now, where's my gin and French, Hubert?
Look here, Moira. I think you've had far too much already.
Darling, I'm not interested in what you think. In fact, sweetie, I'm not at all sure that you can think. You're a tall, upright, well-creased slice of sartorial perfection, but when it comes to brains...
Miss Portland, please.
Moira, now just pull yourself together.
No, please. I'm finding this very interesting. This is a new side to my fiancée. It seems to me that I ought to get acquainted with it.
Oh, careful, Chris, careful. Those are mighty big words. Where's my drink?
Here. You'll finish up with a duodenal, baby. That's what you'll finish up with.
Why, Mr. Kelly, I didn't know you cared. Everybody... Oh, don't look so worried, Eileen. I can take it.
Boy, you certainly can take it.
What did you say I'd finish up with, Mr. Kelly?
A duodenal.
A gigolo and a duodenal. Oh, what a horrible thought.
Hubert, I think we'd better go into dinner.
Yes, just a moment. Moira, don't you think you owe me an apology?
An apology? What for?
You know perfectly well what for.
Oh, because I called you a gigolo? But you are a gigolo. And if you must know, darling, not a very nice gigolo. You're a stinking, rotten little gigolo.
Moira, please.
I think you'd better go to your room, Moira.
I'll do nothing of the sort. Why should I go to my room? I'm not a schoolgirl. I'm not going to anybody's room. I'm going to have another drink. Another little drink.
You're going to have nothing of the sort.
Leave go of my arm.
Moira, now don't be silly. Put that decanter down.
You heard what I said. Now let go of my arm.
Moira, please. Now don't make an exhibition of yourself. Put the decanter down, dear.
Oh, don't you dear me. You're no friend of mine. Never have been. Haven't got any friends. Haven't got a friend in the world.
Boy, is she high.
Come along. I'll take you up to your room.
Oh, don't touch me. Don't put your hands on me. Do you hear what I say? Leave me alone. Leave me alone, Chris.
Moira, please.
Moira, what is it?
Whatever's the matter with the girl?
Oh, you know what's the matter. You know what's the matter with me, all right. One of you murdered Chunky. I only found that out tonight. He was the only friend I had. He understood me. There was no nonsense with Chunky. He was a real friend.
Come along, Moira. Let me take you to your room.
Well, you said she was a temperamental young woman, but I certainly never thought she was that bad.
Oh, that's nothing. Sometimes she gets completely out of hand. I wonder what the devil we're going to do with the girl.
Who's this guy, Chunky, she was on about?
Chunky was a man called Archie Brooks. He was attached to Scotland Yard.
Was he murdered, or was she just making that up?
He was murdered.
When?
3 or 4 nights ago, outside the Manila. The night you telephoned my wife.
The night I telephoned your wife?
Yes.
You mean Mrs. Temple?
Well, I've only got one wife, Mr. Kelly.
Well, why should I phone Mrs. Temple?
I don't know why, but you did.
Well, I'm sorry to disillusion you, but I certainly didn't telephone your wife that night, or any other night if it comes to that.
What the blazes does it matter whether he phoned your wife or not? Didn't you hear what Moira said? She said that someone in this room, one of us, murdered Archie Brooks. Now, who was she getting at?
Don't look at me, brother. I'd never even heard of Brooks until that crazy dame of yours mentioned him.
Did you know Archie Brooks, Mr. Boyer?
Yes, I did. I knew him, liked him, and I didn't murder him.
Well, that seems conclusive enough. What about you, Hubert?
I'd never heard of the fellow until Moira mentioned him.
How's Miss Portland?
She's all right now. I've given her 3 aspirins, and she's lying down. Shall we go into dinner, Hubert?
I think it might be a very good idea, Eileen. So here you are, George. I've been out looking for you. Don't you find it cold out here on the terrace?
No, it's not too cold for me.
Well, they want a 4th for bridge. How about it, old man?
Not for me, sir. I'm tired. Won't be long before I'm hitting the hay.
You're as bad as the Temples.
Have they gone to bed?
They went a quarter of an hour ago.
Well, why don't you ask Boyer?
I doubt he knows one card from another.
Don't kid yourself. I bet that boy's a wizard. He can certainly play the piano.
Sure you won't change your mind?
Quite sure.
Well, I suppose there's nothing for it. I'll have to ask Boyer.
You don't blame me if he skins you alive.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Temple.
I'm looking for my handbag. I think I left it out here when we were having coffee.
Oh, is this it?
Oh, yes, that's it. Thank you.
I thought you'd gone to bed.
I came down for my bag.
Oh. Well, there it is.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes?
why did you tell my husband that you didn't speak to me on the telephone?
Because I don't remember speaking to you.
You don't?
No.
You must have a very short memory.
Maybe.
Don't you remember what you said to me that night?
Well, if I don't remember speaking to you, I'm hardly likely to recall what I said.
You told me to tell my husband to keep out of the Madison case.
What's the Madison case?
Sam Portland had an appointment to see a private detective called Madison. Unfortunately, Portland died of heart failure and was unable to keep the appointment. I'm fairly sure that if he had kept it, he would have discovered that Madison was no more a private detective than you are. If you want my frank opinion...
Sure. Let's have your frank opinion, Mrs. Temple.
I think Madison's a blackmailer and the leader of a racket for distributing counterfeit dollars.
You do?
Yes, I do.
You know, you've got some queer notions inside that head of yours. You're quite a gal.
I'm glad you think so.
I do think so. I do indeed. Say, what else am I supposed to have told you over the telephone?
You said, tell your husband to keep out of the Madison case. If he doesn't, he's going to get mixed up with a bunch of very unpleasant customers.
Did I say that?
You did, Mr. Kelly. You also said that you were one of the unpleasant customers.
No.
Yes.
Why, that's a dreadful thing to say. It's almost a threat. You don't really think I'm an unpleasant customer, do you, Mrs. Temple?
I think you're a very slippery one, Mr. Kelly. Good night.
Ah. Did you find your bag?
Yes. It was on the terrace.
You've been rather a long time, Steve.
I've been talking to Kelly.
Oh, what did he have to say?
I mentioned that telephone call. He still claims that he never made it.
He made it, all right. But why did he make it? That's the point. Is Eileen downstairs?
Yes, she's playing bridge. Do you think she'll come tonight, Paul?
I don't know. What's that good old intuition of yours feel about it?
Well, she promised to come, didn't she? I hope she does, because I've got a feeling that Mrs. Green knows quite a lot about this affair.
Yes. You know, Steve, there's one rather interesting point about all this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether you've spotted it or not.
Yes, I've spotted it, I think. So far, we haven't heard from Mr. Madison.
So far.
Paul, are you awake?
Yes.
It's 3:00.
Yes, I know.
It doesn't look as if she's coming, does it?
No.
Did you hear them come up to bed?
I heard Green. I don't know whether Eileen was with him or not.
What time was that?
Oh, it must have been about 12:30. Where's my lighter?
It's on the dressing table.
Like a cigarette, darling?
No, thanks.
I'm going to give her another half an hour. If she's not here by 3:30...
What is it?
I thought I heard something.
I can't hear anything.
No. No, I must have been mistaken.
Wait a minute.
What is it, Steve?
Shh. Listen. It'll be Eileen.
Yes.
Good. I thought she'd come.
It's all right, I'll answer it.
Why, Mr. Green.
Hello, Green. What is it?
I'm awfully sorry to disturb you, Temple, but...
Come in.
Thank you. Temple, have you seen my wife?
Your wife?
Yes.
No, I'm afraid we haven't.
Isn't she in her room?
No. I went along about a quarter of an hour ago. Eileen wasn't there and the bed hadn't been slept in.
Well, she's probably in the bathroom.
No, I've been to the bathroom.
Well, perhaps she's with Mrs. Portland?
No, she's not with Mrs. Portland or Moira. I've been all over the house and there just isn't a sign of her.
Have you asked the servants?
Yes, I've just come from the servants' quarters.
Well, what time did she come to bed?
She came to bed when I did, just after 12. You must have heard us, Temple. Your light was still on.
Yes, I did.
It's uncanny. I just don't understand it.
You say you've been all over the house?
Yes. I even woke up Kelly and Chris Boyer in the hope that one of them might have heard...
Oh!
Good Lord! What's that, Temple?
Something hit the door.
Paul, what is it?
Look!
It's a knife. Someone must have thrown it at the door.
Do you see anybody?
No. No, there's no one in the corridor.
Paul, look. Stuck on the knife. There's a note.
So there is.
What does it say?
It says, go to the boathouse.
The boathouse?
Is that all it says?
Yes.
Is there a boathouse near here?
Why, yes, of course, down by the lake.
How long would it take us to get there?
About 10 minutes.
Go back to your room and get dressed. I'll meet you downstairs.
Temple, you don't...
Do as I say. I'll meet you downstairs in 3 minutes. Oh, and Green.
Yes?
If you've got a torch, bring it. Where's the boathouse?
It's over there. Look, you can see the outline of it through the bushes.
Is it a dilapidated sort of place?
No, it's pretty well kept. We use it as a storehouse.
Don't flash your torch, Green.
Why?
Because if there's anyone in the boathouse, I don't want them to see us.
Mind your head in that branch, Temple.
It's all right, I can manage.
You'll have to bend low or you'll get...
What is it? Green, what is it?
I thought I saw something.
Where? In the water?
Yes.
I don't see anything.
No. No, I must be mistaken.
What was it?
Oh, nothing. I must have been imagining things.
No, tell me, what was it?
Well, if you must know...
Yes?
I thought I saw a hand.
That was the 4th episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Richard Greenwood, Robin Lang, Eliza Langland, Lucy Patterson, Gareth Thomas, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 5. Steve Takes Over.
Don't flash your torch, Green.
Why?
Because if there's anyone in the boathouse, I don't want them to see us.
Mind your head in that branch, Temple.
It's all right, I can manage.
You'll have to bend low or you...
What is it? Green, what is it?
I thought I saw something.
Where? In the water?
Yes.
I don't see anything.
No, I must be mistaken.
What was it?
Oh, nothing. I must have been imagining things.
No, tell me. What was it?
Well, if you must know...
Yes?
I thought I saw a hand.
Where?
Just over there, below the bank. Careful, there's a lot of weeds and stuff down there. If you slip, you'll be in a terrible mess.
It's all right, I can manage.
Temple!
What is it?
I was right. Look! There's someone in the water. Who is it? Can you see?
No. Shine your torch. That's it. Now, give me your hand.
I don't think you'll reach.
Give me your hand, quickly.
Can you reach?
I think so.
Who is it?
It's a girl. That's it.
Temple, who is it? Can you see? It's Eileen. Temple, it's my wife.
Help me, Green. I want to get her onto the bank.
Temple, it's Eileen. Do you hear what I say? It's Eileen.
I know. But we've got to get her back on the bank.
I've got her, Temple.
That's right.
Quick, get hold of her arms. Temple, for God's sake, help me.
I'm sorry, Green. It's no use.
What do you mean? We've got to do something. We can't just stand here and...
Look at your hands.
What?
Here's the torch. Look at your hands.
They're covered in blood. Temple, they're covered in blood.
She's been stabbed.
Oh, don't start that again.
The whole thing's a nightmare.
Is Miss Portland here?
No, she's in her room. Do you want her?
Sir Graham would like to have a word with her. He's in the library.
I'll tell Moira.
No, that's all right, boy. Would you mind fetching her, Mrs. Portland?
No, of course not.
Thank you.
Temple, don't think I'm trying to be difficult, but when's the old boy going to break down on this routine stuff? He does nothing but ask us the same questions over and over again.
You seem to forget, Kelly, a murder has been committed.
I know a murder's been committed. We're not likely to forget it, any of us. But the point is this. How long are we going to be under suspicion?
You're not under suspicion.
I'm not?
Why, certainly not. Whatever gave you that impression?
What? Say, do you know what's been happening to me since 9 o'clock this morning? I've been questioned by 2 sergeants, an inspector, a divisional superintendent, and Sir Graham Forbes himself. And that isn't everything. They took my fingerprints. Did you know that?
Yes, I knew that. They took my fingerprints as well.
They did?
And Mr. Boyer's.
Oh. Well, that's different. I didn't know it was routine stuff. I thought they'd got their knife into me and wanted...
You thought what?
Look, Temple, let's not play around anymore. Let's put our cards on the table. I know why the Yard have got their eye on me. Mrs. Green was stabbed, wasn't she?
Yes, and so would Inspector James and Archie Brooks.
Is that so?
That's so.
I didn't know that.
I may be dense, Temple, but I don't see the significance. Why bring up a thing
I used to do a knife-throwing act, Mr. Boyer. They still think I'm doing it. Catch on?
But that's nonsense. Why should you want to murder Eileen?
Why should anyone want to if it comes to that? Kelly, does this knife belong to you?
Why, yes. Where did you get it?
What's more to the point, where did you get it?
But I've several knives like that. I carry them about with me. I told you I used to do a circus act.
Do you still do it?
Only as a gag. I take the knives with me when I'm invited anywhere. You know how it is. Some people like to do conjuring tricks, others do card tricks.
And you throw knives?
That's right. Only in fun.
Did you throw this last night?
What do you mean?
Did you?
Good Lord. You don't mean that the knife... Is that the knife that killed Mrs. Green?
No. This knife was thrown at my bedroom door just after 3 o'clock this morning. There was a note attached to it, "Go down to the boathouse." Green and I went down to the boathouse and found Eileen.
Oh.
So you see, Kelly, I'm not accusing you of murder. I'm simply asking you whether...
Whether I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and threw the knife at your bedroom door? The answer is no.
And then somebody must have stolen the knife from you.
That seems to be the obvious explanation.
How many knives have you?
I arrived at Southampton with 4.
That's not what I asked you. How many knives have you?
There should be 3 in my room. The one you've got there makes 4.
And are all the knives the same?
They're different weights and sizes, but they look more or less the same, I guess.
I want you to take a look at these pictures, Kelly.
What are they?
They're from the police file. Close-ups of Archie Brooks and Inspector James. In both instances, you can see the knife.
Well,
Have you seen those knives before?
No.
Don't they belong to you?
I've told you, I've never seen them before. In any case, I've only got 4. 3 of them are upstairs in my room, and you've got the 4th.
How do you know you've still got 3?
Because I was looking at them this morning.
You were looking at them this morning. Then you must have noticed that this one was missing.
Yes. I was under the impression I had left it in town.
I see.
Moira will be down in a few moments.
Oh, thank you, Mrs. Portland.
Mr. Kelly and I would like to catch the 2:45 back to town. Is that possible?
I don't see why not. I'll have a word with Sir Graham.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Temple.
Yes?
Where's Hubert? We haven't seen him since breakfast.
He's in his room.
How's he taking all this?
Well, naturally, he is very distressed.
Yes, of course. What a dreadful thing to have happened. Really dreadful. Have you any idea who did it?
I've got my suspicions, Mrs. Portland. I'll ask Sir Graham about the train.
Of course, the whole point is, Sir Graham, if she was murdered in the house and then taken down to the lake, then there's just the possibility that someone might have...
May I come in?
Yes, of course, Temple.
Moira Portland will be down in a moment.
Oh, good. You know Inspector Vosper, of course?
Yes, indeed, Inspector. Have you checked the prints?
Yes, we've checked all of them, Mr. Temple. No luck, I'm afraid.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Did you show the knife to Kelly?
Yes.
Of course, he'd never seen it before.
Oh, yes, he'd seen it all right. As a matter of fact, it belongs to him.
Did he say so?
Yes.
What?
Apparently he's got several like this. He seems to carry them about with him.
What the devil on earth does he do that for?
When the party gets tame, Kelly livens it up with a demonstration.
What did he say when you produced the knife?
He seemed surprised. Boyer wanted to know whether it was the one that killed Eileen.
I wish we could find that knife, Mr. Temple. There was no sign of it, I suppose.
I'm afraid not. I had a pretty good look for it, too.
Temple, tell me, do you think this is tied up with the murder of Brooks and James? Or do you think it's an isolated affair and nothing to do with the Madison case?
I think it's all part and parcel of the same case, Sir Graham.
Then why was she murdered? We know why James was murdered, and we had a pretty good notion why Brooks was taken care of, but this affair isn't quite the same.
If Mr. Temple's right, Sir Graham, and I must confess I'm inclined to agree with him, then it seems to me...
Come in.
You wanted to see me?
Oh, yes. Come in, Miss Portland.
What is it that you want?
Won't you sit down?
I should prefer to stand, if you don't mind.
Just as you wish. I've been reading through your statement, Miss Portland. There are 1 or 2 points I'm not quite clear about.
Well?
You say you went to your room last night about 8:15 before dinner. You took 3 aspirins and went to bed.
Yes.
I understand from Mr. Temple that earlier in the evening you caused rather an unpleasant scene.
Yes. I was tight. I'm afraid I behaved very badly.
Well, you made rather a remarkable statement.
Did I? I'm afraid I don't remember.
You said that Archie Brooks was a friend of yours and that he'd been murdered by someone in this room. It was obvious that you were referring to either Mr. or Mrs. Green, George Kelly, Mrs. Portland, or your fiancé, Chris Boyer.
I've told you I don't remember making such a statement.
Nevertheless, you made it.
I was drunk. I just didn't know what I was saying.
Was Archie Brooks a friend of yours?
Yes.
A close friend?
It depends on what you mean by close friend.
Did you see a great deal of each other?
No. He came to the Manila once or twice, and we had a few drinks together, that's all.
You seem to be fond of having a few drinks.
Is there anything else you'd like to know?
Yes, there is.
Well?
Have you seen this knife before?
No.
Are you sure?
Quite sure.
When did you first hear that Mrs. Green had been murdered?
My fiancé told me. He came to my room.
And what time would that be?
About 4:30.
Were you surprised?
Well, of course I was surprised. I was stunned.
Is this the first time you've been down here to Brown Acres?
Oh, good gracious, no. I've been down several times.
I understand you work for Mr. Green.
I'm attached to the London office of the Portland Yeast Company, if that's what you mean.
Mr. Green's office?
Mr. Green is in charge of the office, yes.
Miss Portland, when I met your father on the boat coming over from America, he told me that Mr. Green had made arrangements for him to meet a man called Madison. Have you heard of Mr. Madison by any chance?
No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Mr. Green doesn't seem to have heard of Madison either. It's most odd.
You must have misunderstood my father.
No, I don't think I did.
I'm sorry I can't help you. May I go now?
Yes, you can go, Miss Portland.
Oh, just a moment.
Yes?
You said last night you'd been down into the village, to the local pub.
Yes.
Which one did you go to?
There is only one, the White Horse.
The White Swan.
I mean the White Swan.
If I remember rightly, you had 3 pink gins, is that right?
Yes.
They must have been under the counter.
What do you mean?
What are you getting at, sir?
Have you ever tried to order a pink gin at the White Swan, Inspector?
No, sir.
Well, I have. I tried this morning. By Timothy, how I tried.
What are you talking about?
They only have a beer license. But apart from that, no one seems to remember serving you, Miss Portland. Now I ask you. A very pretty girl in full evening dress strolls into a very quiet bar and orders 3 pink gins, and yet no one seems to remember her. It's most odd.
Why?
Did you really go down to the village last night?
Of course I did. If I didn't go down into the village, how did I manage to get drunk so quickly?
I don't think you were drunk, Miss Portland.
Sir Graham, I'm going back to town this afternoon. Have you any objection?
None whatsoever. We've got your address, I take it?
Yes, sir, we've got her address.
If you want to get in touch with me during the week, you can nearly always find me at the office.
Thank you.
What did you mean, Mr. Temple? You don't think she was drunk? When we spoke to Mrs. Portland, Hubert Green, Kelly, and her fiancé Boyer, they all said she was drunk.
Well, she looked drunk and behaved as if she was drunk, but I bet my hat that she wasn't.
You mean she was putting on an act? But why?
Temple, you don't think she overheard our telephone conversation, became upset, and had to pretend she was drunk to conceal her feelings?
It's a possibility. Sir Graham, I've been meaning to ask you about that phone call. Was that a lot of nonsense about Dr. Eltzek, or did you really come across his photograph?
Oh, we came across it all right. It was in the snapshot album you found at Brooks's place. Eltzek, or Viner as he called himself in 37, seems to be quite a character. He's been mixed up in all sorts of rackets.
Is he a doctor?
Not a medical doctor. He's a doctor of music.
Why did you tell me about him over the phone? Wasn't that risky?
I wanted whoever was listening to know that we were onto him. I believe that if Eltzek really is mixed up in this business, they'll either go for him or drop him like a hot potato. Oh, don't worry. We've got our eye on Dr. Eltzek. With a bit of luck, he might turn out to be a first-class decoy.
I hope you're right, Sir Graham. I sincerely hope you're right. It's all right, darling. I can cope.
I'll take my hat box.
Oh, right, thanks.
I'll close the gates.
Wait a moment. I think there's someone coming.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Temple.
Hello, Dr. Eltzek. Are you going upstairs?
Yes.
I don't think you've met my wife.
No, I've not yet had that pleasure. Good evening, Mrs. Temple.
Good evening, Doctor.
Can you get in all right? It's a bit of a crush with all this luggage.
Yes, I can manage. Thank you.
Shall I press the button?
Yes, please, darling.
Have you been away for the weekend?
Yes, we've only just got back.
I'm glad I bumped into you. Mr. Temple, there's something I wanted to speak to you about.
Oh?
You'll probably think it's a lot of nonsense, but...
Go on, Doctor.
Mr. Temple, if I wanted to speak to someone at Scotland Yard, do you think you could arrange it for me?
Well, it's not really very difficult, you know. All you've got to do is phone Whitehall 1212.
Yes, but... Oh, here we are.
Shall I take the smaller case?
No, it's all right, darling. I'll see to it. You go ahead.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Goodbye, Mrs. Temple.
Now, Doctor, you were saying, you want me to speak to someone at Scotland Yard?
Well, I was wondering if you could arrange for me to see that man. The man that was in the lift the first time we met?
Inspector James?
Yes.
I'm afraid that won't be possible.
No?
James is dead. He was murdered.
Oh? Oh, I didn't know that.
Why did you want to see the inspector?
Well, well, the fact of the matter is, Mr. Temple, I think I'm being followed.
Being followed?
Yes. It really is most odd. The first time I noticed it was yesterday morning. I had an appointment in Regent Street and I picked up a taxi just outside the flat. When I was getting into the taxi, I noticed a man standing in one of the doorways.
Go on.
Well, later, the same morning, when I was going down Oxford Street, I noticed the same man. He was on the opposite side of the road, but I'm quite sure he was watching me.
It doesn't mean to say you're being followed just because you've seen the same man twice in the same day.
Yeah, but I saw him again this afternoon. I had an appointment in Knightsbridge. I caught the tube from Green Park, and when I got into the train, he was already there, sitting in the corner, watching me.
Did you speak to him?
Well, no, of course not.
Have you any idea who he is or why he's following you?
Not the slightest.
All right, I'll have a word with the Yard about it. If you see him again or anything else develops, give me a ring.
Thank you, Mr. Temple. That's very kind of you. Here's your case.
Oh, thank you. Where does this shirt go, darling?
To the laundry. Put it over there.
Golly, I'm tired. If there's anything I hate more than unpacking...
It's packing. Paul, you really are the limit. You've bundled everything onto the bed.
Oh, I'll sort it out later.
You'll do nothing of the sort. Oh, that's someone at the door, darling.
Well, isn't Charlie, eh?
No, it's his night out.
Right, Timothy, how many nights out does that young fella have?
Evening, Temple.
Hello, Sir Graham. Come in.
What time did you get back?
We've only been in about a quarter of an hour. Come along. Let me get you a drink.
Steve in?
Yeah, she's unpacking. She'll be out in a minute. What would you like, Sir Graham?
Nothing, thanks.
Sure?
Yes, quite sure.
I'm rather glad you called round, Sir Graham. I just bumped into Eltsek.
Oh, when?
About 20 minutes ago. He asked me to have a word with you.
What about?
He's under the impression that he's being followed.
Oh, Lord.
Yes, he's spotted your man. I'm afraid you'll have to change him.
That's annoying. Oh, well, I'll have a word with Vosper in the morning.
Hello, Sir Graham.
Oh, hello, Steve.
No, don't get up. You look rather pleased with yourself. What's happened?
When I got back to the yard, I found this cable waiting for me. Read it, Temple.
Well, this doesn't make sense to me. What does it mean?
I'll tell you. It means that we really have traced the plane, the one that crashed at Eppingdale. We know where it came from, and we know who was flying it.
That's quick work.
Yeah, we move quickly sometimes. It was flown by a man called Dordrecht, a Dutchman. I phoned the authorities in Amsterdam, and this time it really looks as if we're onto something.
What do you mean?
I think it's a pretty safe bet, Steve, that Dordrecht came over here to collect a supply of counterfeit dollars. The head man, call him Madison if you like, got wind of our visit to Eppingdale and failed to keep his appointment.
Go on.
Someone else is going to come over. Someone else is going to contact Madison and collect the dollars.
Is that supposition or fact?
It's a fact, because we know who's coming.
What?
You do?
Yes. Dordrecht worked with a Spaniard, a man called Alfaro.
Alfaro?
Yes, he's an export merchant. He lives outside Amsterdam. For weeks now, the Dutch police have had their eye on him. They know he's been running a counterfeit racket, and they've been waiting for the right moment to drop on him. 2 days ago, Alfaro booked a reservation. He flies from Amsterdam on Wednesday.
For London?
Yes.
What are you going to do? Tail him at this end?
Of course. From the moment he steps off the plane, we'll watch him like a hawk. In my opinion, there's a very good chance he might lead us straight to Madison.
Yes, and there's a very good chance he might vanish into thin air. Someone ought to bump into Alfaro at Schiphol Airport, get friendly, and travel over with him on the plane.
Yes, I thought of that, Temple. That's why I'm here.
Oh, you want me to pop over to Amsterdam?
No, I don't want you to pop anywhere.
What do you mean?
I want Steve to go over to Holland. I want her to accidentally bump into Alfaro.
Yes, but just a minute. Why Steve?
Well...
Why Steve?
Alfaro's a boy for the ladies, correct, Sir Graham?
Yes.
Yes. Well, I don't like it.
You're not supposed to like it, darling. Go on, Sir Graham.
There's absolutely nothing for you to worry about, Temple. You know Steve. When it comes to anything like this, she's got her head positively riveted on.
What would you want me to do?
I should want you to play up to him. Get to know everything you can. If he falls for you and wants to make a date, then make a date. But
what?
Don't worry, I'll have half the yard tailing her the moment she steps off the plane.
Well, frankly, I don't like it.
Darling, I could do it standing on my head.
What about her passport? If he sees the name Temple...
He won't. I fixed that with the Foreign Office.
What do you mean?
You'll be travelling under the name of Gloria Wade.
Gloria Wade? What on earth am I supposed to be?
A musical comedy actress. Very gay and not exactly out of the top drawer. I'll let you have the passport on Tuesday morning.
What time does the plane leave Amsterdam?
2:40 Wednesday afternoon.
Gloria Wade.
Do you mind if I put my coat over here?
No, not at all.
Excuse me, madam, I'll take the coat.
Oh, thank you.
Can we get anything to eat on the plane?
Yes, sir. We shall be serving refreshments later.
Stewardess?
Yes, madam?
Stewardess, I can't sit here. I'm terribly sorry, but I simply can't sit here.
Why? What's the matter?
I must sit near the front. If I don't, I shall be sick, violently sick.
I'm afraid all the seats are taken, madam.
Oh, but I've got to move. I just can't... Oh, ask that young man there if he'll change seats. I'm sure he'll be a darling.
You'd like to change seats?
Oh, would you mind? Would you mind terribly?
No, that's quite all right.
Oh, you really are a darling. You're terribly sweet.
Would you prefer to sit on the inside?
No, I shall be quite all right here.
Are you sure?
Quite sure.
I hope that young man wasn't a friend of yours.
Oh, no. We were not traveling together.
Oh, I'm terribly nervous.
But there's no need to be nervous. What are you nervous about?
Oh, I don't know. Just don't know. Haven't a clue.
English?
What do you mean?
Are you English?
Of course I'm English. What did you think I was, an Alsatian?
Haven't I seen you somewhere before?
Oh, now, come off it. Come off it.
No, seriously.
Did you see one of the girls?
One of the girls?
A review. I did 6 weeks in Paris.
Ah, you are on the stage.
I say, you are bright, aren't you?
What did you do in One of the Girls?
What didn't I do? Everything.
I'm sorry I missed it. I should have liked to have seen you. Don't you think you had better fasten your belt?
My belt? Oh, my belt. Oh, yes, of course.
What have you been doing in Amsterdam?
I haven't been doing anything. I'm on my way home from Switzerland. What a country. Have you been there?
But of course.
Oh, it's heavenly. Yodeloo.
So, you are a singer?
What did you think I was?
I did not know. I thought perhaps you were a dancer. You have the, what is the word, the figure of a dancer.
Oh, really?
Permit me to introduce myself, Senorita. My name is Don Alfaro.
I'm Gloria Wade.
I'm pleased to meet you, Miss Wade.
I'm pleased to meet you, too.
I'm so glad you changed your seat.
Well, so far, so good.
You will be all right now. The worst is over.
Famous last words.
Pardon?
I said famous... Oh, stop it, Gloria. You're not Dutch, are you?
I am a Spaniard.
A Spaniard? Really? I don't think I've ever met a real Spaniard before.
Well, you have met one now.
Do you live in Spain?
No, I live just outside Amsterdam. I'm in the export business. That's why I'm coming to England.
Oh, just fancy. How nice. It's all export now, isn't it?
Yes.
What do you export?
Oh, all sorts of things. What are you going to do when you get back to England?
Oh, I don't know. Probably go into a show.
I know one or two theatre people. They may be able to help you.
Oh, really? Oh, that is nice of you.
You live in London?
Yes, I live with a girlfriend in St. John's Wood.
St. John's Wood? Is that nice?
Oh, ever so nice. Very select, of course. How long are you staying in England?
2-3 days.
With friends?
Yes, with friends.
Where?
In the country. Look, why don't we have dinner together one evening?
Oh, I couldn't do that.
Why not?
Oh, I really couldn't.
Wouldn't you like to have dinner with me?
Yes, of course, but...
Well...
All right, I'll try anything once.
Where shall we meet? You know the Plaza Hotel?
Yes.
I'll meet you in the lounge tonight at 8 o'clock.
I say, you are a quick worker, aren't you?
Well, why not tonight?
Oh, Mr. Alfaro.
Hello, senorita. I am so sorry I'm late.
Late? Do you know what time it is? It's nearly 9:15.
I know, but, well, after all, business is business.
What have you been up to? You've been up to something, I'll bet. You're as cute as a box of monkeys.
No, I've just been getting things organized.
What things?
Oh, just little things. Don't you trouble your pretty little head about business. Now, what would you like to do?
What would you like to do?
I've ordered a table at the Ritz. As a matter of fact, I promised to see someone there at 10 o'clock.
A girl?
No, of course not. A business associate. It won't take more than 10 or 15 minutes. I promise you, Gloria. I'll be finished in a quarter of an hour.
All right, then we better go to the Ritz.
You don't have to come if you don't want to. But I've kept the taxi waiting.
I said all right, didn't I?
Now, don't be tiresome about this, my dear.
You men, you're all the same. Work.
Would you like a drink before we leave?
Well, all right.
Waiter.
Monsieur?
2 champagne cocktails.
2 champagne cocktails, monsieur.
I'll tell you what we'll do, Gloria. When we have had dinner together, we
What do
shall...
they call this man?
Which man?
The man you're meeting.
Oh, I've told you it's not important.
I know you foreigners, you're all the same.
Gloria, if I told you his name, you wouldn't be any the wiser.
No, I'll bet I wouldn't.
Don't you believe me?
Well, I don't know. Phew, isn't it hot in here?
Are you warm?
Yes, I am. Can't we have the window down?
It will be very cold with the window open.
Well, then let's have it open. Phew, it's like an oven.
I don't think it is warm.
You don't?
No, I think it is just nice.
You're hot-blooded. That's why you don't. You don't. Oh, notice it.
What is the matter?
Well, I don't know. I put the window down.
You look very pale.
Yes, I feel dizzy. I can't see properly. What's the matter with me? What is it? What's happening?
Is there anything you would like me to do?
Yes, I'd like you to put the window down.
Harry.
Yes?
She's asleep.
Oh, it worked all right.
Yes. You know where to go?
Sure, I know where to go. How long will she be out?
About an hour.
She's a good looker.
Yes.
Who is she?
Her name is Temple. She picked me up on the plane coming over from Amsterdam.
That was the 5th episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Jimmy Chisholm, Emma Curry, Richard Greenwood, Robin Lane, Michael Mackenzie, Lucy Patterson, Greg Powery, Gareth Thomas, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. We present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 6, Just a Red Herring.
I don't think it is warm.
You don't?
No, I think it is just nice.
You're hot-blooded. That's why you don't notice it.
What is the matter, Senorita?
Don't know. Put the window down.
You look very pale.
Yes, I'm terribly dizzy. I can't see properly. What's the matter with me? What is it? What's happening?
Is there anything you would like me to do?
Yes, I'd like you to put the window down.
Harry.
Yeah?
She's asleep.
Oh, it worked all right?
Yes. You know where to go?
Sure, I know where to go. How long will she be out?
About an hour.
She's a good looker.
Yes.
Who is she?
Her name is Temple. She picked me up on the plane coming over from Amsterdam.
Is she with the yard?
I don't know. Frankly, I can't make it out.
What are you going to do with her?
I'll decide when we get down to the cottage. Harry?
Yeah?
Are we being followed?
No, I don't think so.
You'd better make certain.
I can't see anybody.
Have you arranged for the launch?
Yes, I phoned Eltec.
What did you say?
I said we'd be there by 9.
Did you tell him about our little friend here?
No.
Good. I'm afraid we're going to be late.
We should be in a hell of a mess if he doesn't wait for us.
You'd better step on it.
Okay.
They're late. I'm giving them another 5 minutes.
It's not like Alvaro to be late.
Well, he's late tonight.
I don't like it. I've got a feeling.
I'm not interested in your feelings, Bennett. Keep them to yourself.
I shouldn't be doing this. This isn't my job. I wish I was back on the newspaper.
There's nothing to stop you going back.
Oh, and what happens when I mention it? You know what he threatens to do. You know what happened to Kendall.
Kendall had an accident. He was knocked down by a car.
An accident? Do you believe it was an accident?
Yes, I do. I know it was an accident because...
What is it?
Here they are.
Are you sure it's Harry?
Yes. I know the taxi. You stay here.
Okay. Let's check.
What is it?
There's someone watching us. Look.
It's only a little girl. Take no notice of her. You're late.
Yeah, I know.
Is Alfaro with you?
I'm here. Good evening, Mr. Weiner. Or should I say, Dr. Elzek?
It doesn't matter what you say. I'm tired of hanging about. Come on, let's get to the cottage.
One moment.
What is it?
I've brought someone with me.
What do you mean? Who is it?
You'd better take a look.
Good heavens. Do you know who this is?
Yes. Her name is Temple. She picked me up on the plane coming over from Amsterdam. I don't know what the idea is, I'm sure.
Why did you bring her here?
Because I intend to ask Mrs. Temple 1 or 2 questions. I couldn't very well do that in the lounge of the Plaza Hotel.
I don't think Madison would like that.
I'm not interested in what Madison likes or dislikes. Which boat have you brought? The one with the cabin?
Yes.
Ah, good. Have you got anyone with you?
Bennett.
All right. Tell him to give Harry a hand and put the girl in the cabin.
I don't want her to see me.
That won't be necessary, don't worry. Come along. Let's go down to the launch. Is everything ready for me?
Yes.
What is it this time, 10s or 20s?
They're mostly $10 bills.
Good. What's in this case?
I understand it's new radio equipment. Madison told me to take it down to the cottage.
Did he bring it on board?
Yes.
When?
About an hour ago. I was sorry to hear about Dordrecht.
Yes.
How are you going to get the stuff back? It won't be easy without him.
I'm seeing Madison tomorrow. We're discussing the whole proposition. Hello? Here's Bennett.
What is it, Bennett?
That woman.
Yes?
She's coming round.
Ah, I'll go and talk to her.
Whatever happens, don't let her scream. You can hear everything at this time of night.
Don't worry.
Where am I? Where are you taking me?
There's no need for alarm. Please sit down.
If you don't tell me where you're taking me...
Now sit down, Mrs. Temple, and listen to what I'm saying.
So, you know who I am then?
Didn't I tell you on the plane that I thought I'd recognized you? If you don't wish to be recognized, you know you shouldn't have your photograph in the glossy magazines.
What is it you want?
What's more to the point, Mrs. Temple, is what do you want?
I demand that you turn the boat round and take me back.
You have a sense of humor. Oh, forgive me. Can I offer you a drink? A champagne cocktail, perhaps?
Where are you taking me?
You'll find out. All in good time. But first, I want to have a little chat. Why did you catch that particular plane from Amsterdam? Because you wanted to get friendly with me?
Yes.
Why?
My husband's investigating the Madison mystery, and there are certain things which we should like to know, Mr. Alfaro.
What, for instance?
Well, for instance, who is Mr. Madison?
Go on. What else would you like to know?
Why did your colleague, Munir Dordrecht, carry an English penny on a keychain? A penny with the date 1919 on it.
Go on.
Who murdered Eileen Green?
I've never heard of anyone called Eileen Green.
And there's another interesting point. Why did you arrange for the...
Why, you little devil!
Open this door! Do you hear what I say? Open this door!
You raise your voice again,
Leave go of my arm!
Why, you...
Now, please, let go of my arm.
Thank you.
You'll regret that, Mrs. Temple. Now, sit down and listen to what I'm saying. How did you know that I should be traveling on that particular plane? All right. I'll ask you another question. How did you know that I was mixed up in this business?
Someone told my husband.
Who?
Don't you know?
Answer me. Who told him?
All right.
For weeks now, the Dutch police have had their eye on you. They know you're mixed up in the counterfeit racket. They knew that Dordrecht was mixed up in it.
You're lying.
I'm not lying.
If you're telling me the truth, why haven't they arrested me? Why didn't they arrest Dordrecht?
Because the Dutch, like Scotland Yard, are not interested in small fry, Mr. Alfaro.
I'm beginning to understand. I've been used as a decoy. They thought I would lead you to Madison. They thought I would deliberately lead... What is it? What's the matter?
What's happened?
It's the police! They're on board! What? It's the police, Alfaro! You'd better... Oh!
Harry! What's happened? Harry!
Help! Paul! Help!
Shut up! Shut up!
Paul! Look out!
Drop that gun!
Oh, darling, look out!
Oh, no, you don't, my friend.
Oh, good man, Vosper.
Good Lord, I've knocked him cold.
Oh, Paul!
Darling, are you all right?
Yes.
You sure?
Yes, I'm all right.
You sure?
Yes, darling, honestly.
Oh, here you are, Steve. Is she all right, Temple?
Hello, Sir Graham.
Yes, she's all right.
Thank heavens we found you.
Have you rounded them all up?
Yes, but there's no sign of... Is this Alfaro?
Yes.
What happened to him?
He bumped against my fist, sir.
Oh, I see.
How many of them are there?
4 with Alfaro. That includes our friend Dr. Eltsek.
Eltsek? Was he one of them?
Yes.
That's interesting.
What shall we do, Sir Graham?
I want you to stay on board and take over, Vosper. I'm leaving you Taylor and Smith.
Very good, sir.
Now keep on our tail. Don't get too far away in case there's any trouble.
There'll be no trouble, sir. Don't you worry.
Nevertheless, keep pretty close.
Sir.
Come along, Temple. Let's get back to the police launch. Let me give you a hand, Steve.
He's keeping pretty close, sir.
Yes, I told him to.
Where are we aiming for, Sergeant?
I'm making for Millgate Steps. Is that all right, Sir Graham?
Yes, that's all right.
I've contacted Superintendent Bradley. He's meeting us there.
Good. Are you feeling cold, Steve?
Just a little bit.
There's an overcoat over there, Temple.
I'll get it.
I'm sorry things turned out like this.
They might have turned out much worse. How on earth did you manage to find me?
Well, we followed the taxi from the plaza and then suddenly lost sight of it. Fortunately, when we got down to the river, a little girl told Vosper about the launch. She apparently saw you being carried out of the taxi.
Here we are, Steve.
Oh, thanks.
Have you any idea where they were taking you to?
I heard one of them mention a cottage.
You've no idea where it is, I suppose.
Not the slightest.
Did you know Eltsek was on board?
No, but funnily enough, I thought I recognized his voice.
When did Alfaro spot you, darling?
On the plane. Apparently, he'd seen a photograph of me in a glossy magazine.
Oh, that was bad luck.
Well, I've discovered one thing, Paul.
What's that?
Both Alfaro and Eltsek know the identity of Madison. They're not working in the dark.
I sincerely hope you're right, Steve.
Why do you say that?
Well, we've got Eltsek and we've got Alfaro. All we've got to do now is make them talk.
They won't talk, Sir Graham.
I wouldn't be too sure about that, darling. Steve, I'm rather curious about one point. Why did Alfaro... Oh, good Lord!
What is it?
What happened, Paul?
Be careful, Steve. Hold on. Look, there's Vosper.
I don't see him.
Oh, there he is, sir.
Oh, yes, I can see him. Swing around, Sergeant.
I don't see any of the others.
It'll be a miracle if any of them survive.
There's someone else in the water. Look, over there. He's clinging to part of the wreckage.
She's right.
It's Smith.
Are you all right, Smith?
He can't hear you.
I think he can, sir. Can you hold on?
He's waving.
I think he's all right, Paul.
Our friend will be all right. He's a first-class swimmer.
It doesn't look like Vosper is.
I don't see any sign of Taylor.
No.
Here's Vosper. He's over on the stern. Give me your hand, Sir Graham, quickly.
Slacken speed, Sergeant.
Be careful, Paul.
It's all right.
Steady.
I've got him. Hold on, Sir Graham.
Yeah, that's it. I can manage. If you could just...
Get hold of his arm, Sir Graham. That's it.
I'm all right now.
What happened, Vosper?
Well, there must have been a time bomb in the suitcase. Lucky for me, I was over on the other side of the launch when it went off. I don't know what happened to the others.
Turn the launch, Sergeant. We've got to pick up Smith.
Would you like some more coffee, Paul?
Oh, yes. Yes, please, darling.
Is there anything in the paper about last night?
They refer to it as a mysterious explosion in which 5 people lost their lives. There aren't any details.
My word, I was lucky.
You certainly were. Just how lucky, I don't suppose you'll ever know.
I can guess.
What do you mean?
I know what a temptation it must have been for you.
What are you talking about?
If you'd left me on the launch and simply followed us, there's a sporting chance we should have taken you straight to their headquarters.
Sporting chance, my foot. You don't think I'd take a chance like that, do you? Why, good heavens, even if the explosion hadn't have happened, it's more than likely we should have lost you on the river.
Do you think Vosper was right? Do you think it was a time bomb in the suitcase?
Yes, I do.
What are you going to do this morning, Paul?
Well, I've got an appointment with Sir Graham at 10. It's rather a pity. I was hoping to start my new novel this morning.
What's it all about?
The novel?
Yes.
It's all about a man who murders his wife because she always forgets to put sugar in his coffee.
Darling, I'm sorry.
It's all right, I'll take it. Hello?
Is that Mr. Temple?
Yes, who's that?
This is Moira Portland.
Oh, good morning, Miss Portland. I'm sorry, I didn't recognize your voice.
Mr. Temple, I don't want to make a nuisance of myself, but do you think I could see you sometime? I'd rather like to talk to you.
Yes, of course, Miss Portland. As a matter of fact, I'd rather like to talk to you, too.
Could you meet me tonight?
Yes, certainly. Would you like to come to my flat?
No, I should prefer to meet you at the Manila.
Well, why not come to the flat? We can talk much better here than at the Manila.
No, if I come to the flat, I might be noticed.
What do you want me to do? Bump into you accidentally?
Yes, I shall be there from 9 o'clock onwards.
All right, I'll be there about 10.
Thank you. Oh, Mr. Temple.
Yes?
I'm awfully sorry I was rude to you at the weekend, but, well, you see, I haven't been feeling very well recently, and I'm afraid I've been rather overdoing things.
Yes, I think you have, Miss Portland. If I were you, I should take it easy. You know what I mean, don't you?
Yes.
I'll see you tonight.
No, wait a minute. Don't ring off, please. There's something else I want to tell you.
What?
I didn't murder Eileen.
I never thought you did, Miss Portland.
No, but the police think so. At least they will think so when they find...
When they find what?
Nothing. I'll tell you tonight.
All right.
Oh, Mr. Temple, whatever happens, please don't change your mind about me.
What do you mean?
I didn't murder Eileen. Honestly, I didn't. I'm just a red herring.
Well, what an extraordinary thing to say.
Was that Moira Portland?
Yes.
What did she say?
She wants me to meet her tonight at the Manila.
Yes, but what else did she say? You seemed so surprised.
She said, I didn't murder Eileen. What is it, Charlie?
There's Mr. Kelly would like to see you, sir.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes, all right, Charlie. Ask him in.
Okay.
What does Kelly want, I wonder?
I don't know.
Did you expect him?
No. Ah, hello, Kelly. Come on in.
Am I interrupting your breakfast?
No, we've just finished.
You can take the tray, Charlie.
Yes, Mom.
Will you excuse me, Mr. Kelly?
Oh, don't go away, Mrs. Temple, please. I wanted to have a word with you.
With me?
Yes.
What about?
You said I telephoned you one night at the Manila.
That's right, you did.
But I didn't, Mrs. Temple.
Well, if you didn't, who did? It sounded remarkably like you, Mr. Kelly.
That's just the point. Who did? Temple, I've been doing quite a lot of thinking during the past few days, and I've kind of reached a decision. Do you know what I think? I think somebody's trying to make a monkey out of me.
A monkey out of you, Mr. Kelly?
Yes. Somebody impersonated me that night. Somebody tried to give you the impression that I was mixed up in this, Madison affair.
Aren't you mixed up in the Madison affair?
Most certainly not. And I'll tell you another thing I'm not mixed up in either.
What's that?
This Green murder. Now, I don't know what your opinion is, Temple, but I have a hunch the police are trying to pin that rap on me.
The police aren't trying to pin a rap on anybody, as you so elegantly put it.
Well, they've asked me an awful lot of questions. They keep on asking me an awful lot of questions.
Does that surprise you?
Certainly it surprises me. Why pick on me, of all people? Why not pick on Hubert Green? Or Stella or Moira Portland, for that matter?
You know how Eileen was murdered. She was stabbed.
All right, she was stabbed. But does that mean that I stabbed her? Listen, Temple, if I wanted to commit a murder, would I use a knife? No, sir, you bet your bottom dollar I wouldn't.
What would you do, Mr. Kelly?
Why, I'd shoot the guy or strangle him or something. I certainly wouldn't throw suspicion onto myself by using a dagger.
Are you suggesting, then, that someone is deliberately trying to throw suspicion onto you?
That's exactly what I'm suggesting, Mrs. Temple. And what really gets me, is the fact that Scotland Yard can't see through it. I'm not mixed up in this Madison mystery, not really mixed up in it. I'm just a red herring.
Is that why you came here this morning, Kelly, to tell us that you were just a red herring?
No, of course it isn't. I came here because I wanted you to have a look at this brooch.
Where did you find this?
I came across it in the bushes down by the lake, not so far from where you found Mrs. Green.
Were you looking for it?
No, I went down to the lake because, well, I wanted to see the scene of the crime. I guess you can put it down to morbid curiosity. I was probing among the bushes when I suddenly found this clip. It's been rather badly knocked about, Temple.
Yes, I can see that.
Have you any idea who it belongs to?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have.
Well?
It belongs to Moira Portland.
Mr. Temple, sir.
Ah, come in, Temple. Thank you, Sergeant.
I'm afraid I'm a little late, Sir Graham.
That's all right. Green hasn't arrived yet.
Is that why you wanted me here? Because you're going to question Green?
Not exactly. As a matter of fact, Green made the appointment himself. I wanted to have a chat. Sit down.
Thank you.
Temple, we don't seem to be getting anywhere with this Green murder. I had another talk with Kelly yesterday, and he still sticks to his original story.
Well, you've succeeded in rattling Mr. Kelly, if nothing else.
Have you seen him?
Yes, I saw him this morning. He produced this rather interesting trinket.
Yeah? What is it? A clip?
Yes. Apparently he found it by the lake, near where Mrs. Green was found.
It looks to me as if it's been trodden on.
Yes.
Who does it belong to?
Well, according to Kelly, it belongs to Moira Portland, but personally I rather doubt it. Anyway, I'm seeing her tonight. I'll mention it. She's asked me to meet her at the Manila.
The Manila? Why?
I don't know why, but I've got my suspicions. Any news of Elzek or the other man, Alfaro?
We picked up Alfaro shortly after you left us. There was no sign of Elzek.
Was Alfaro dead?
Yes. So is Sergeant Taylor. His body was picked up this morning.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. He seemed a nice young fellow.
Yes, he was indeed.
Do you think Elzek was lucky and escaped, or do you think it's just the fact that you haven't found him yet?
I don't know. According to Vosper, he was standing about 2 or 3 yards from him when the thing exploded. I'm inclined to think Elzek was thrown clear of the actual explosion.
In which case it's just a question of whether he was drowned or not.
Yes.
You heard what Steve said about the cottage?
Yes, and I'm determined to find that place if it's the last thing I do.
As if you do find it, you'll probably discover the whole setup, the printing press and everything.
Yes, I agree. Well, we're combing every inch of the river, Temple. We can't do more than that. Yes, Sergeant?
Mr. Green has arrived, sir.
Ask him in.
Yes, sir. This way, please.
Ah, come in, Green.
Good morning, Sir Graham. Oh, hello, Temple. I didn't expect to find you here.
Would you like to see Sir Graham alone?
No, actually, I'm rather glad to see you, Temple.
Won't you sit down, Green?
Oh, thank you. Do you mind if I smoke?
No, of course not.
Sir Graham?
No, thank you.
Temple?
Thank you.
I'll tell you why I wanted to see you, Sir Graham. Light?
Oh, thanks.
I've been thinking about last weekend. In fact, I can't stop thinking about it. Sometimes, you know, it's difficult for me to realise that Eileen isn't, Well, I'm staying in town as much as possible. I just can't bear the thought of going back to the house.
I can understand that.
What did you want to see me about?
I wanted to tell you about something that happened, or rather that was said, the night before my wife was murdered.
Go on.
We were in the library, Stella, Eileen, Chris Boyer and myself. It was before Moira Portland and Mr. and Mrs. Temple joined us. I overheard a remark which Chris Boyer made to my wife. Now, I didn't think anything of it at the time, but in the light of what's happened,
What did Boyer say to your wife?
He said, "We'll have to talk about this, Eileen. We'll try and get together. I'll meet you later tonight."
Is that all he said?
Yes.
Have we any idea what he was referring to?
Not the slightest.
Was Boyer a friend of your wife's? A personal friend?
Oh, good heavens, no. They hardly knew one another.
You're quite sure that was what you overheard?
Quite sure.
Did you speak to your wife about it?
No. I didn't think it was important. I thought the whole thing was unimportant. In any case, it went completely out of my mind. Well, you remember what happened, Temple. Moira came down and we had that awful scene in the library.
Yes. Boyer said, "We'll have to talk about this, Eileen. We'll try and get together."
That's right.
And you haven't the slightest idea to what he was referring?
Not the slightest.
Have you spoken to Boyer about it? Have you asked him what he meant?
Well, no, I haven't seen Boyer since the weekend.
Well, next time you see him, I should ask him if I were you.
Yes, all right, I'll do that. I'm sorry to have bothered you, Sir Graham. I thought perhaps it might be important.
It still might be important.
Green, tell me, have you seen this clip before?
No.
You're sure?
Yes.
It didn't belong to your wife, by any chance?
No, I'm sure it didn't. I'm quite sure.
see any sign of Moira Portland.
No, I don't either.
Do you think she's in the cocktail bar?
Possibly. Let's go and have a look.
Wait a minute, Paul.
What is it?
Isn't that Mrs. Portland over there?
Yes, so it is. She's spotted us.
Hello, Mr. Temple.
Hello.
Good evening, Mrs. Temple.
Good evening, Mrs. Portland.
I didn't know you were a member here.
I'm a very new member. I only joined a couple of days ago. Would you care to have a drink with us?
Well, that's very sweet of you, but I'm in a party and I hardly feel I can break away quite so early in the evening.
Well, later on, perhaps.
Yes, I'd love to.
Is Moira in your party?
Moira? Good gracious, no. I haven't seen Moira since... Is anything the matter with my dress, Mrs. Temple?
I wasn't looking at your dress, Mrs. Portland. I was looking at your clip.
Oh.
It's awfully nice, isn't it?
Sam bought it for me in New York. Well, actually, he bought me a pair, but unfortunately, I...
Lost the other one.
Yes, how did you know?
Is this it?
Why, yes. Wherever did you find it?
I didn't find it. Mr. Kelly did.
Where?
He found it by the lake, not very far from where Mrs. Green was murdered.
How very odd.
Have you any idea where you lost it?
No, I'm afraid I haven't.
Mr. Green was under the impression it belonged to Moira.
Oh, yes, I can understand that. I lent the clips to Moira, and George must have seen her wearing them.
When did you lend the clips to Miss Portland?
That night, the night before the murder. Don't you remember seeing them?
No, I can't say I do.
Yes, I do. She wore a black dress with a sort of ruffle across the top and a clip on each shoulder.
That's right, Mrs. Temple.
Mrs. Portland, let's get this straight. Did you lose the clip or did Moira lose it?
Well, I don't really know how it happened. You see, I lent her the clips and then she returned them to me. Actually, she put them on my dressing table when she went to bed. You remember she went up rather early that night because...
Yes, I remember.
The next morning, I packed the clips. At least I think I packed them. And when I got back to town, I found there was one missing. I was sorry to be rather hazy about it, but I'm afraid that's what happened.
I see.
Now, if you'll excuse me, I think perhaps I'd better go and join my friends. Goodbye, Mrs. Temple.
Goodbye.
We shall probably see you later.
Yes, I hope so.
Paul,
Yes, darling?
do you believe her story?
Well, she seemed rather vague about it, didn't she? Come along, let's go into the cocktail bar.
Hello there.
Oh, hello, boy.
I thought it was you. I've been expecting to see you, Temple. I hear you're a member now.
Yes.
Well, that's fine. I'm glad to hear it. How are you, Mrs. Temple?
I'm very well, thank you.
Is Moira with you?
No, she's not here tonight.
Well, she'll probably be along later.
I doubt it. She's usually here by this time if she's coming. Temple, I'm glad I bumped into you. There's something I wanted to ask you.
Yes?
I saw Inspector Vosper this afternoon. He came to my flat.
Oh?
Well, you know, Temple, I've got a hunch that the police think I'm mixed up in this business.
Which business?
Why, this murder.
The Green murder?
Yes, of course.
And whatever gave you that idea?
Well, Vosper was very curious. He asked me a great many questions. Some very embarrassing ones, I'm afraid.
That isn't entirely unusual when a murder's being investigated.
Temple, I'd like to be frank with you about this business.
By all means.
I know that this Green case, the murder of Chunky Brooks, the death of Mark Kendall are all part and parcel of the same thing. The Madison mystery.
Well?
Well, I want you to know that I'm not mixed up in the Madison mystery, Temple.
No?
No.
Tell me, why did you say to Mrs. Green the night before she was murdered, "We'll have to talk about this, Eileen, and we'll try and get together. I'll meet you later tonight"?
How do you know I said that?
You were overheard.
Well, whoever overheard me must have deliberately... Look here, Temple, if you think I'm behind all this, if you think I'm the mysterious Mr. Madison, then you've got another thing coming. It's perfectly obvious that somebody's trying to throw suspicion onto me. You know what I am, don't you?
No. What are you, Mr. Boyer?
I'm just a red herring. That was the 6th episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Jimmy Chisholm, Richard Greenwood, Robin Lane, Michael Mackenzie, Lucy Patterson, Greg Powry, Gareth Thomas, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. Episode 7. The Four Suspects.
This is Inspector Vosper speaking. Mr. Temple, listen, don't leave the Manila Club. Sir Graham's on his way over. He wants to see you.
What is it, Vosper? Is anything wrong?
It's Moira Portland, sir. She's dead.
Dead?
Yeah. We found the body about 20 minutes ago.
Where did you find her?
In a flat just off the Charing Cross Road.
What flat?
Chris Boyer's.
I see. Well, thanks for letting me know, Vosper. I'll talk to Sir Graham when he arrives.
Who was it on the phone, darling?
It was a message from Sir Graham. He wants to see me.
Tonight?
Yes, he's calling in here. Boyer, when did you last see Moira Portland?
This afternoon. Why do you ask?
I wondered, that's all.
Look here, Temple. I think it's about time I took you into my confidence. What's your honest opinion of me?
Well,
Come along, let's be frank about it. You've met me several times. We spent the weekend together down at Hubert Green's place.
The first time I met you, I thought you were a nitwitted young man who danced divinely. Now I'm not so sure.
What are you not so sure about? My dancing?
No, that you are nitwitted. I've an idea that you're playing a part, and playing it very well, if I may say so.
You may say so, and how right you are. And if it affords you any personal satisfaction, you're the first person that spotted it. Before the war, I was an actor. I did 4 years with the Weekly Rep Company and 2 years in the West End. When the war broke out, I went into the Fleet Air Arm. I was demobbed in 1945.
Go on.
I came back to the theatre brimming with enthusiasm. After 18 months, I was eventually offered the part of a butler in a French farce. I had 2 lines. I stuck it for the best part of 12 months, and then one night I decided to change my tactics. I'd always been a good dancer, and to be frank, women were never exactly allergic to me. The rest you can imagine.
Yes.
And how does Moira Portland fit into the picture?
She doesn't.
What do you mean?
I broke off our engagement this afternoon. You see, Temple, I quite enjoy playing the part of a gigolo, but...
But you don't like to be called one, at least not to your face.
Exactly.
Is that the real reason why you broke off your engagement with Miss Portland?
What other reason could I have?
The fact that she takes drugs.
When did you discover that?
I guessed it, the night she pretended to be drunk.
I don't know why, but Moira's changed a great deal during the past few months. She seems worried and almost frightened at times.
Have you any idea what she's frightened about?
No, I haven't. But curiously enough, Chunky Brooks must have noticed something. He asked me a great many questions about Moira, and he spoke to Eileen Green about her as well. That was the significance of the remark, the one that Green overheard. I wanted to have a word with Eileen about it and simply said, "We'll have to talk about this, Eileen. I'll meet you later tonight."
And did you meet her?
Of course not. She was murdered, you know that.
You said just now that Hubert Green overheard your remark. How do you know it was Green?
You said so.
No, I didn't. I simply said your remark was overheard.
Well, I took it for granted it was Green.
Oh, here's Sir Graham.
Hello, Sir Graham.
Did you get my message, Temple?
Yes, I've just been speaking to Vosper.
Has anything happened, Sir Graham?
Yes. There's been a new development. Boy, I'm afraid I've got some very bad news for you.
What is it? Is it Moira?
Yes. She's committed suicide.
Oh, how horrible.
I was afraid of that. What time did she do it?
About 8 o'clock this evening. What did you mean just now when you said I was afraid of that?
Moira's been acting very strange lately. She's been terribly overwrought and at times quite impossible to talk to. I was talking to Temple about it only a few moments ago.
Mr. Boyer was saying that he'd just broken off his engagement.
Oh? When did that happen?
This afternoon.
Was Miss Portland upset?
We were both upset. It wasn't exactly a pleasant afternoon.
Where did you see Miss Portland?
At her flat. I arrived about 2:45 and left just after 4.
Did anyone else call on her while you were there?
No, but there was a telephone call.
Who was it? Do you know?
Yes, it was Mrs. Portland.
Did you hear the conversation?
Part of it. They seem to be making an appointment to see each other.
I'd like to see Mrs. Portland.
She's here, Sir Graham.
What, here at the Manila?
Yes, we were talking to her only a few minutes ago. She's in the cocktail bar.
Good. Boy, would you mind asking Mrs. Portland if she can spare me a moment?
Very well.
Oh, dear. That poor girl. Why do you think she did it, Sir Graham? Because Boyer broke off the engagement?
I don't think the engagement had anything to do with it. I may be wrong, of course.
I agree with you, Sir Graham. I don't think it has either. According to Boyer, she's been desperately worried for some little time now.
Did he tell you why she was worried?
No.
She's been taking drugs. Did you know that?
Yes.
Why did you want to talk to Mrs. Portland, Sir Graham?
A woman visited Moira this afternoon just after Boyer left her. From the description we've received, it sounds remarkably like Mrs. Portland.
Well, that rather ties up with the phone call, doesn't it?
Yes. You know, Temple, I've been doing quite a lot of thinking, and it seems to me that we've got 4 first-class suspects in the Madison mystery.
We may have 4 suspects, Sir Graham, but there's only one Mr. Madison.
Who are the 4? Stella Portland, Hubert Green, George Kelly?
And Chris Boyer.
But you both said that you didn't think he had anything to do with Moira committing suicide.
No, we don't think the broken engagement had anything to do with it.
Exactly.
Yes, but if he deliberately did that this afternoon...
Here's Mrs. Portland.
She looks upset.
Boyer must have told her.
Sir Graham, is this true, what Chris just told me about Moira?
Yes, I'm afraid it is, Mrs. Portland.
Oh, the stupid, silly girl. Whatever made her do it, I told her that...
Mrs. Portland, when did you last see your stepdaughter?
I beg your pardon?
When did you last see your stepdaughter?
Oh, several days ago. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen her since the weekend.
Are you sure?
Whatever do you mean? Of course I'm sure.
You haven't seen Miss Portland since the weekend?
No.
You didn't visit her this afternoon?
No, I didn't. I've told you I haven't seen her for several days.
Have you spoken to her on the telephone?
No, Yes. Yes, I have. I spoke to her this afternoon.
Did she ring you, or did you...
No, I rang her. I wanted to arrange a luncheon date.
Did you arrange it?
Yes, for next Friday.
Mrs. Portland, you must forgive me if I ask you a rather personal question.
I'm getting quite used to personal questions, Sir Graham.
How did you get on with your stepdaughter?
I got on quite well with her. I don't expect you to believe that. I don't expect anyone to believe it, but the fact remains that I did.
I see.
When we first met, we took an instant dislike to one another, then gradually things began to change. I think she realised that...
Realised what, Mrs. Portland?
That I was a friend and not an enemy.
Had she many enemies?
I should ask Mr. Boyer that question. After all, he was her fiancé.
Boyer broke off the engagement this afternoon.
Oh.
Didn't you know that?
No, I didn't.
What was Moira like on the phone? Did she sound worried or depressed at all?
No more than usual. Frankly, she hadn't a lot to say. I had the impression that there was someone with her.
Boyer said that he was with her, Mrs. Portland.
Oh, I see.
Have you any idea why she committed suicide?
No, I haven't, unless she was terribly upset about what happened this afternoon.
You mean it was the breaking of her engagement?
Yes.
You can't think of any other reason why she should have taken her life?
No. No, I can't.
You don't sound very convincing, Mrs. Portland.
Come on, Charlie.
Haven't you got your key?
I've got it somewhere, but where on earth did I put it?
I can't understand why Charlie doesn't come.
It's probably in bed.
Oh, come on.
I don't know what on earth's the matter with Charlie these days. He seems to deliberately go out of his way.
We thought you'd gone on your holidays, Charlie.
What, me? I had my holidays in August.
It was such a long time answering the door.
Oh. That was on account of Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes, I was in the bathroom, sir, helping him to tidy up.
Mr. Kelly?
Don't keep on saying Mr. Kelly, darling. What's happened, Charlie?
Mr. Kelly's had a bit of a rough house. He's been tidying up in the bathroom.
Come on, Steve. Let's see what it's all about.
Oh, hello there. Say, I'm glad you're back.
What on earth have you been up to?
You might well ask.
You've torn your shirt.
I've torn darn nearly everything.
You look as if you've been in a fight.
I have, and I got the worst of it.
But what happened?
I don't know what happened. It seemed to me I was hit by a hurricane. One minute I was standing on my feet, the next I was fighting for dear life. Oh, just look at my face. Uncle Sam certainly took an awful beating.
Kelly, I'm not very bright this evening. Supposing you start at the beginning. What are you doing here, anyway?
I wanted to have a talk. I was passing your apartment, so I thought I'd drop in for a few minutes. The elevator was on the top floor, and I rang for it.
Go on.
It came down. The light wasn't on, so I took it for granted it was empty.
Well, wasn't it empty?
It certainly was not. Just as I put my hand on the gate, it was thrown open, and wham! For a moment, I just didn't know what had hit me.
You mean to say someone stepped out of the lift and hit you?
No, I certainly did.
But why?
You're asking me. Either the guy was nuts or he just didn't want me to see him. Anyway, we went at it hell for leather. Suddenly, he landed me a real Joe Louis. Oh, what a humdinger. Did I hear music? When I recovered, the guy disappeared.
Would you recognize him again?
No, I don't think I would. You see, we were more or less in the dark, and the whole thing happened so quickly.
I bet you'd like to get your hands on him.
Get my hands on him? I don't want to go near the guy. Look what he's done to me.
All right, Kelly, join us when you're ready. I dare say you can do with a scotch and soda.
And how?
How's that?
Oh, that's dandy. Thanks. That certainly looks good. My, tastes good, too.
You know, Kelly, that's rather a remarkable story of yours.
Remarkable? It's fantastic. If I was in your shoes, I just wouldn't believe a word of it.
When did it happen, exactly?
The fight?
Yes.
About 10 minutes ago. Gee, I wish you and Mrs. Temple had turned up 10 minutes earlier.
You're quite sure you wouldn't recognize the man again?
I'm sure. Oh. Say, I wonder if it's any use asking the people up above if they knew him.
There isn't anybody above.
No? What do you mean?
The flat immediately above this belongs to a Major Hartley. He's in Washington. He's sublet it to a man called Eltzek.
Well, maybe this guy was a friend of this Eltzek's.
Eltzek disappeared several days ago. We have reason to believe he was drowned.
Oh. Was he a friend of yours?
Not exactly. Anyway, what was it you wanted to see me about?
Well, you know that brooch, or rather clip, I found? The one I handed over to you this morning.
Yes?
I told you it belonged to Moira Portland.
That's right.
Well, I've been thinking about that. Maybe that was a tactless thing for me to say, in view of the fact I found the brooch very near the spot where Mrs. Green was murdered.
Why tactless?
Well, I don't want to throw suspicion on Moira Portland. I don't want to throw suspicion on anybody.
Don't worry, Mr. Kelly. You won't throw suspicion onto Miss Portland. She's dead.
Who are you kidding?
I'm not kidding. I'm telling you the truth. Miss Portland committed suicide.
When?
Tonight.
A young kid like that. Why? Whatever made her do such a stupid thing? For God's sake, what made her do it?
Your guess is as good as mine, Kelly. It might even be better. Excuse me. Hello? Hello? Who is that? Who's there?
Is that you, Temple?
Yes? Who is this?
This is Eltzek.
Dr. Eltzek?
Temple, listen, I got to see you. There's something I must tell you.
What's the matter? What's the matter with you?
I've been beaten up. I...
Eltzek? Eltzek, where are you?
Temple, what is it?
Shh, be quiet. Eltzek, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, I can hear, Temple. I want to tell you about Madison. I want to tell you about the cottage at Lockdale.
At Lockdale?
Yes, that's where we were going. The night Madison double-crossed us.
Eltzek, listen. Where are you? Where are you speaking from?
I'm in the flat.
By Timothy.
What is it? What's happened?
Eltzek's been beaten up. He's in the flat above. Come on, Kelly. Follow me.
Is this the flat?
Yes.
Is the door locked?
Yes, we've got to break it down. Come on, Kelly.
Oh, boy, this is some door.
Come on. That's it.
Gee. What's hit this place? There's been a whale of a fight by the looks of things.
Yes.
I don't see any sign of your friend Eltzek.
He's over here in the bedroom.
Oh? Let's have a look. Certainly being beaten up. Is he?
Yes. We're too late, Kelly.
That's terrible. Temple, you know that character I bumped into? The fellow I told you about, the one who went for me in the elevator?
Yes?
Do you think he's responsible for this? You think he murdered Eltzek?
It's possible. Quite possible. Are you ready?
Yes.
You look very glamorous this morning.
Well, I don't feel very glamorous. Look, have I got to go out this morning?
Yes, Steve, you have. And don't forget what I told you.
Do you really want me to do that?
Yes, I do, Steve.
But it doesn't make sense.
Doesn't it, darling? Well, don't let it worry you. What is it, Charlie?
I'm off now, Mr. Temple.
All right, Charlie, have a good time.
You bet I will, Mr. T.
And where do you think you're going?
I'm having the day off.
Oh, you are you?
That's right. Mr. Temple said it'd be okay.
Oh, he did.
That's right.
It's all right, Charlie, run along.
Okie dokie, Mr. T.
Oh, just see who that is, will you?
Will do, sir.
Now, look here, Paul. I don't know what's going on here this morning, but I intend to know...
There's Inspector Vosper to see you, Mr. T.
Oh, why, hello, Inspector. Come in.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mrs. Temple.
Good morning, Inspector. Well, I'm going now, Paul.
Yes, all right, darling. Don't forget what I told you.
I won't.
Well, how did you get on upstairs?
We've turned the place upside down.
Have you found anything?
Frankly, very little of the stuff seems to belong to Eltsec. It's mostly Major Hartley's.
Any fingerprints?
Nothing worth worrying about. But that's not why I wanted to see you, Mr. Temple.
Why did you want to see me?
Are you sure, quite sure, that Eltsec said the cottage at Lockdale?
Yes.
It was Lockdale?
Yes, I'm quite sure it was Lockdale. Why?
Well, we've been turning the village upside down, sir. If there's a cottage down there being used for this counterfeit racket, then by George, we've yet to find it.
Are there many cottages down there?
Only about half a dozen.
Only half a dozen? You must have checked them by now.
Yes, sir, we have. I just don't understand it.
Well, I'm sure Eltsec said Lockdale.
It didn't say Laleham by any chance, sir?
Laleham? Where's Laleham? Is that on the river?
Which about 3/4 of a mile from Chertsey.
No, I'm pretty sure he said Lockdale, Inspector.
All right, we'll go on checking. We'll move the whole of Scotland Yard down there if necessary. Mr. Temple, you remember that fellow Mark Kendall, the chap that broke into your flat?
Yes.
I've got a theory about him.
What's that?
Well, I think that Kendall was under the impression that Eltsec was doing a double cross. It's my opinion that he didn't intend to break into your flat that night, but into Eltsec's.
You mean he picked the wrong flat?
Exactly. Don't forget, Eltsec had only moved in the day before.
Yes, I agree with you, Inspector.
And there's another point, Mr. Temple. You remember that explosion on the river?
I shan't easily forget it, Inspector.
Well, I think I know what happened that night. Madison took a suitcase down to the launch. He told Eltsec it was something for the cottage. In actual fact, it was a time bomb. Madison wanted to get rid of Eltsec, Alfaro, and the rest of the gang.
In other words, he's going into liquidation.
Exactly.
You may be right, Inspector. If you are...
We've got to move fast.
Fast is hardly the word. We've got to move like greased lightning.
Yes. Mr. Temple, what do you think happened last night?
With Eltsec?
Yes.
I think when Eltsec realized that Madison was trying to double-cross him, he decided to get his own back. He sent for Madison with the intention of letting him have it. Unfortunately for Eltsec and for us too, Madison turned the tables on him.
In other words, Kelly was beaten up by Madison, who was making a getaway after the attack on Eltsec.
Yes.
That's one theory, of course. There is another.
Yes, there is another, Inspector. What time is it?
I'll make it just gone 12.
I think that's George Kelly at the door. Will you excuse me, Inspector?
Oh, I'd like a word with Kelly.
Well, I rather wanted to see him alone.
I can wait.
No, I'd prefer you to see him some other time, if you don't mind.
No, of course not. Are you up to something, Mr. Temple?
What, me? Good gracious, no. Look here, Inspector, I'll take him into my study and you slip out the front door. You can let yourself out all right, can't you?
Oh, yes, of course I can. I say, what's going on here? Why the devil shouldn't I see Kelly?
No reason at all, if you'd really like to see him.
All right, Mr. Temple. You play it your own way.
Thanks, Inspector. Ah, come in, Kelly.
Am I late?
No, you're in nice time.
Sorry I was out when you phoned. I only got your message about an hour ago.
That's all right. I'm glad you could make it. Let's go into my study.
Say, this is some den.
Do you like it?
Yes, sir. Is this where you write all those thrillers?
Well, some of them. Would you like a glass of sherry?
Yeah, I think maybe I would.
This is a very dry sherry. I hope you like it.
Can't be too dry for me. Say, you've written some books.
One or two.
You know, funny enough, I've never read one of yours.
There's nothing funny about it, Mr. Kelly. Quite a lot of people haven't read any of my books. Here you are.
Thank you. Now, I go in for westerns. You know, the sort of thing. Riders Over Arizona, The Sheriff of Melton Creek.
Shades of Zane Grey.
Sure.
Well, your very good health.
Yours too.
Sit down, Kelly. I'll tell you what I wanted to see you about. I've been having a talk to Inspector Vosper. He's got a theory about last night. He thinks that Eltsec was murdered by a man called Madison, and that it was Madison that bumped into you coming out of the lift.
Well, that's exactly what I said. I told you, in my opinion, the guy who murdered Elzek was the bird who knocked the stuffing out of me.
Yes. Well, I'd like you to go down to the yard, Kelly, and look at some photographs.
What sort of photographs?
Oh, just pictures of one or two people. I've got a hunch you might be able to pick him out.
What, the man who attacked me?
Yes.
There's not a hope. I wouldn't recognize him if he walked into this room. I told you, it was dark. I hardly saw the guy.
Nevertheless, I'd like you to have a look at the photographs. Oh, excuse me. Hello?
Well, here I am, darling. You told me to ring you up.
Oh, hello, Steve.
Well, don't sound so surprised.
Is anything the matter, darling?
No, of course there isn't anything the matter. Remember, you told me...
Oh, I say, that's too bad. When did it happen?
When did what happen?
Have you tried the starting handle?
Paul, what is this? What are you talking about?
Oh, Steve, you should have tried the starting handle. That's the first thing you should have done. Where are you, darling? Where are you speaking from?
Where do you think I'm speaking from? I'm in the call box at the end of the road.
Good Lord, what an extraordinary place to pick.
What do you mean, what an extraordinary place to pick? You told me to ring you up from...
Look here, Steve, I'd better come down and have a look at you. Go back and sit in the car, darling.
What do you mean, go back and sit in the car? I haven't got the car. I walked down to the box.
Yes, all right, you can try that, but I shouldn't get your hands dirty.
I haven't the slightest intention of... Try what? What are you talking about?
All right, Steve, I'll do that. Shan't be long, darling.
Is anything the matter?
Yes, my wife's having a spot of trouble with the car. Not exactly an unusual occurrence, Mr. Kelly. Look here, would you excuse me if I popped out for 5 or 10 minutes? I'd better give her a hand.
Sure, I'll come with you.
No, I'd rather you didn't. The flat's empty, and I'm expecting a call from Scotland Yard.
Do you want me to take it?
I should be very grateful if you would. It'll be Sir Graham Forbes. Tell him I'll see him as arranged, 9 o'clock tonight.
Okay, I'll do that.
I shan't be long.
If you need any help with the car, give me a ring.
I think I know what's wrong with it. The trouble with my wife is she never uses any imagination. I shan't be long, Kelly.
Okay.
If you feel like another glass of sherry, just help yourself.
I might do that. It's very nice.
Kelly, I'm sorry we've been such a long time.
It's okay.
I hope you helped yourself to the sherry.
I nearly started on the whiskey.
You should have done, Mr. Kelly. It would have taught my husband a lesson, leaving you alone in the flat like that.
Did anyone call?
No, and there wasn't a phone call either.
Oh, didn't Sir Graham ring?
No. What was the matter with the car, Mrs. Temple?
Tell him, darling.
You beast. No, you tell him. You'll enjoy it more.
He ran out of petrol.
Oh, that's just too bad.
Come on, Kelly, let's go into the drawing room.
Oh, no, Temple, I'm afraid I got to be making a move. I've got a luncheon date.
Oh, what a pity. Well, look here, Kelly. Will you drop in the yard and have a word with Vosper? I would like you to check on those photographs.
Okay, but I told you it's no use. I'm sure I shouldn't recognize the guy again.
Well, you never know.
Goodbye, Mrs. Temple.
Goodbye, Mr. Kelly.
I'll see you to the lift. When you see Vosper, tell him that you've had a chat to me and that I suggested he showed you a series of photographs. If you can give him some idea of the height of the man who attacked him... Is lunch ready, darling?
It will be in a few minutes.
Oh, you've changed your dress.
Now, look here, Paul. Don't you start giving me the runaround.
The runaround?
Yes, the runaround. Now, what's all this about? First of all, you give Charlie the day off. And then you make me go down to the call box and put through a phony phone call. Then you invite Mr. Kelly to the flat and leave him high and dry.
Hardly dry, darling. Don't you know what it's all about?
But of course I don't know what it's all about.
Well, where's that intuition of yours?
You keep my intuition out of this.
Hello?
Is that you, Temple?
Who is that?
This is Hubert Green.
Oh, hello, Green.
Temple, I'm awfully sorry I couldn't make it this morning.
Make it? Make what?
Our appointment.
Appointment? Had we an appointment this morning?
Yes. I got your note last night. You said, would I call round and see you at 12 o'clock this morning?
I did.
Yes.
My dear fellow, I never sent you a note.
But I've got it here, now, in front of me.
I sent you a note
Asking me to call round at 12 o'clock this morning, yes. Unfortunately, I was kept at the office and couldn't make it.
But, Green, I never sent you a note. I didn't want you to call round this morning.
But I tell you, I've got the note here in front of me.
Well, you may have this note in front of you, Green. I'm quite prepared to believe that you have. But the fact remains that I didn't send it.
Then who did?
Was it posted?
No, it was delivered by hand.
Who delivered it?
I don't know. I found it in the letterbox.
Is it typewritten?
No, it's handwritten.
Bring it round to the flat this evening. You know my address?
Yes, of course. I say, this is very odd, isn't it, Temple? Why should anyone send me a note like this?
Do as I say, Green. Bring the note round this evening.
Yes, all right, I will. Goodbye, Temple.
Goodbye.
What is it, Paul? What's happened?
Green received a note asking him to call here this morning. He apparently couldn't keep the appointment because he was detained at the office.
Did you send him a note?
No, I didn't.
Then who did? Do you know?
Yes, I've got a very good idea. It's all right, darling. I'll see who that is.
Good morning, Mr. Temple.
Mrs. Portland? Is anything the matter?
Yes, I've got to see you. I've got to see you now, this minute, before it's too late.
What's happened?
I want to tell you why Moira committed suicide. I want you to know what she told me yesterday afternoon. I want to tell you about Madison.
That was the 7th episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Richard Greenwood, Robin Lang, Michael Mackenzie, Greg Powery, Gareth Thomas, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner. We present Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve in Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, a serial by Francis Durbridge. The 8th and final episode, Introducing Madison.
Why, hello, Mrs. Portland. Is anything the matter?
Yes, I've got to see you. I've got to see you now, this minute, before it's too late.
What's happened?
I want to tell you why Moira committed suicide. I want you to know what she told me yesterday afternoon. I want to tell you about Madison.
Please, do come in.
Darling, who is it?
It's Mrs. Portland.
Is anything the matter?
Yes, I... May I sit down for a few moments?
Yes, of course. Come along.
Give me your arm. Do you feel better now?
Yes, I'm all right now. I was so upset about Moira. It came as a great shock to me, you see. I was only talking to her just before she committed suicide.
What did Moira tell you, Mrs. Portland?
Well, yesterday afternoon, the poor girl was obviously on the verge of a nervous breakdown. She told me the whole story, the story about herself and my husband Sam and Chris Boye.
Go on.
Well, you know the story about Sam, about his loss of memory and how he was discovered wandering down Portland Avenue in Chicago.
Yes.
Well, for many years, Sam tried to discover his true identity. It was almost an obsession with him. He told you the story of the penny. He told nearly everyone he met. He attached great importance to that penny. One morning, some months ago, Chris Boye told Moira that he'd discovered Sam's identity. He told Moira that Sam was the son of a man called Clent Dawson.
Clent Dawson?
Yes. Dawson was a swindler. He was a notorious share pusher and company promoter. He was sent to prison in 1914. Mrs. Dawson, together with Sam, left England shortly after her husband was sentenced. At the time, no one knew where she went or what happened to her. It's pretty obvious now, of course, that she went to the States.
Yes. Go on.
When Boye told Moira this story, she asked me not to tell anyone about it. Her common sense told her that such a story would not only distress Sam, but probably have drastic repercussions on the Portland Yeast Company.
But why should it do that?
Well, if it became known that the head of the company was the son of a swindler, then...
Like father, like son.
Exactly.
Go on, Mrs. Portland.
To Moira's astonishment, Boye started to blackmail her. He must have had literally thousands of pounds out of the poor girl. Suddenly Moira could stand it no longer, and she told Boyer to send for her father and tell him the whole story. You know what happened.
Boyer pretended that a private investigator called Madison had discovered Sam's identity, and he wired for your husband to come over here.
Yes. He put Hubert Green's name to the cable because he realised that Sam would take more notice of it. What would have happened if Sam hadn't died, it's difficult to say. I believe that Boyer would have told him the whole story and then blackmailed him.
Do you think Boyer really did discover the identity of your husband, or was he just bluffing?
From what Moira told me, I'm pretty sure he was onto something. You see, Sam was right. That particular penny was an important link. If Boyer could have got hold of that penny, he could have proved without any shadow of doubt that Sam was the son of the notorious Dawson.
Is that why the penny was changed?
Yes.
Who changed it?
Moira did. As soon as we arrived in London, she came straight to the hotel. She asked me to see Sam's watch chain. I thought at the time it was just for sentimental reasons. I realise now, of course, that she changed the penny.
Where is the penny, Mrs. Portland? The actual penny that Sam carried about with him?
It's here. I got it from Moira yesterday afternoon.
1885. Well, the date's all right anyway. Portland could certainly have had this penny in his pocket in 1914, but that doesn't prove that this is the penny.
There's an inscription on the bottom. It's very, very faint, but if you look closely, you can just see it.
To my word, it certainly is faint. To my son, good luck, C... Is it a B or a D?
Well, I always thought it was a B. And so did Sam, but if Boyer's story is true, then...
C.D. Clent Dawson. Paul, the coin must have been given to Portland by his father.
1885. That's probably the year that Sam was born. He always reckoned he was about 64 or 5.
Yes.
You know, it seems to me you know everything there is to know about Boyer without having so much as a shred of evidence.
I agree, Mrs. Temple. And that's the most dreadful part of the whole business. Unless, of course, your husband...
Unless what, Mrs. Portland?
Unless you've got the evidence, Mr. Temple?
I know the identity of Madison, Mrs. Portland, and I've got quite enough evidence for an arrest when the time comes.
This looks like Mr. Temple, Sir Graham.
Yes, I think it is. What time do you make it, Vosper?
Just gone 4.
He certainly hasn't wasted any time.
It's only an hour since I phoned him.
Sorry to have kept you waiting.
We were just saying how quick you've been.
So you finally found the place, Inspector?
One of my men found it. There was a message for me when I got back to the yard.
Was it at Lockdale?
Yes, but no wonder we couldn't spot it. The cottage was built on the site of what must have been a country mansion. The Madison outfit had been using the cellar.
Is the cottage deserted?
It's derelict. You wouldn't look twice at the place.
What's the cellar like?
You've never seen anything like it, Temple. And talk about equipment.
It's an eye-opener. No wonder they've been able to flood the continent with counterfeit dollars.
How long will it take us to get there?
Are you in a hurry?
I want to be back by 7 at the latest.
Oh, that's easy.
Jump aboard, Temple.
We're ready, Constable. Cast off. Ready, good sir.
How did you get on in town?
Oh, very well.
Did Kelly turn up?
Yes. As a matter of fact, he turned up while I was talking to Vosper.
Oh.
I think Vosper wondered what on earth was going on.
I can imagine that. Did you tell him?
No, I didn't want to take any chances. I haven't even told Steve about it.
Perhaps you're right. Madison's a clever devil. At least you'll certainly think so when you've seen this place at Lockdale.
Well, if he'd stuck to his counterfeit racket, I doubt very much whether we would have caught him.
I doubt it too. But we haven't caught him yet, Temple.
No, Sir Graham, but we shall.
Afternoon, Sergeant.
Good afternoon, sir. Oh, good afternoon, Sir Graham.
Good afternoon, Sergeant.
Anything to report?
Yes, sir. There's someone in the cottage, sir.
In the cottage?
Yes, sir. Young fellow came down the towpath about 5 minutes ago and he went up to the cottage. We let him carry on because we didn't want to arouse his suspicions.
What was he like, this young fellow?
Oh, rather a good-looking chap. We thought he was selling something. He carried a small case.
Is he in the cottage now?
He's either in the cottage or in the cellar.
All right, Sergeant. Come along, Temple.
The door's latched.
Wait a minute.
Can you open it?
I think so.
You've done it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Boyer.
Why, Temple, Sir Graham, what is this? What are you doing here?
I ask what you are doing here?
I have an appointment. At least, I think I have.
You don't seem very sure.
Well, I don't know, you see. This place isn't at all what I expected. Why, it's almost derelict.
What did you expect?
Well, I expected a cottage by the river, a sort of weekend place. When Kelly spoke to me on the phone, he said that...
What did Mr. Kelly say?
He said that he'd taken the cottage for weekends. He asked me to meet him here. He also asked me to bring this case along. Apparently he left it at the Manila 2 or 3 nights ago.
Have you any idea why Kelly wanted to see you?
Well, yes, of course. I wouldn't have come otherwise. He said that he had a message for me from Moira, a note which she was supposed to have written shortly before she committed suicide.
Did you say this case belongs to Kelly?
Yes.
What's in it, do you know?
I believe it's just books and things.
Let me have a look at it.
Is it locked?
Yes. By Timothy.
What is it, Temple?
Listen. Listen to this. Do you hear it?
Yes.
Good Lord, is that from the case?
Yes.
You mean that...
Look out, stand clear. Get away from the window. Quick!
Good Lord, Temple! What was in it?
Well, it wasn't books.
What time is it, Paul?
It's just gone 8:30.
I feel awfully tired.
Well, if you feel tired, I should go to bed.
Oh, I have a jolly good mind to.
Did you finish the drink I mixed you?
Yes.
Yes. Would you like another?
No. No, I don't think so. Paul, I feel peculiar.
What do you mean, peculiar?
Unsteady.
Oh, I expect you've been overdoing things.
Hmm.
I should go and lie down, Steve.
Yes, I'm afraid if you want anything, you'll have to get it yourself. Charlie hasn't come in yet.
All right, darling.
Good night, Paul.
Good night, darling. Ah, hello, Green. I've been expecting you. Come in.
I hope I'm not too early.
No, you're in nice time. Shall I take your coat?
Thanks.
Ah, let's go into the study.
This is a very pleasant room.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Would you like a drink?
Well,
I'm having a whiskey and soda.
No, I don't think I will, thank you. I say, it was very odd about that note, wasn't it? Can't imagine why anyone else should send it.
May I see it?
Yes, of course. I've brought it for you.
Dear Mr. Green, I should be grateful if you would call round and see me this morning at 12 o'clock. Yours sincerely, Paul Temple. Did you call round this morning?
No, I told you over the telephone I was detained at the office. I couldn't make it.
Yes, of course.
Temple, who did send this note?
Don't you know who sent it?
No.
Sir Graham Forbes.
Sir Graham?
Yes.
You're joking?
No.
But why should Sir Graham send it?
Because I asked him to.
Because you... Look here, Temple, what is this?
I asked Sir Graham to send you a note because I wanted you to call round at 12 o'clock this morning.
But why didn't you write the note yourself?
Ah, yes. Why didn't I? That's quite a point.
What do you mean?
Well, if I'd written the note myself, I couldn't truthfully have said that I hadn't written it, could I? And if I couldn't have said that I hadn't written it, you wouldn't be here.
I'm afraid I don't follow you.
Don't you? It's really quite simple. You came here this evening because you were quite genuinely puzzled about the note. If you hadn't been puzzled, you wouldn't have come. That's true, isn't it?
Yes, but... Do you mean to say that the note was a hoax to get me here this evening?
No, to get you here this morning at 12 o'clock.
But I didn't come here this morning.
I'm sorry to contradict you, but I feel quite sure that you did.
What do you mean? If I say I didn't come, then I didn't come.
Green, I think it's about time you realised that the game is up.
What?
For quite a while now, I've suspected that you were Madison, that you were head of the counterfeit racket, and that you were responsible for the death of Chunky Brooks, Inspector James, and Eileen.
Good Lord, man. Are you crazy?
Let me tell you something, Green. I've met a great many people in my time, a great many criminals. But I don't think I've ever met one quite like you before. I believe if only you'd stuck to the counterfeit racket, you'd have got away with it. Unfortunately, you went in for blackmail.
I'm supposed to be a blackmailer as well, am I? My word, I do sound an unpleasant customer. Just as a matter of interest, who am I supposed to have blackmailed?
You blackmailed Mrs. Portland into telling me a very interesting story. A perfectly true story, too, except for one interesting detail.
What do you mean?
It was you and not Chris Boyer who discovered that Sam Portland was the son of a notorious swindler. It was you and not Mr. Boyer who blackmailed Moira. When Moira refused to be blackmailed any longer, you sent for Sam. When Sam died, you tried to get hold of the penny to substantiate your story. You knew that if you had possession of the penny, you could go on blackmailing Mrs. Portland and eventually gain control of the Portland Yeast Company.
This is a most interesting story. Tell me, it's a small point, but why am I supposed to have murdered Eileen?
Eileen found out that you were mixed up in the counterfeit racket, and she told a friend of hers, a CID man, Archie Brooks. Brooks asked your wife to keep an eye on you. Eileen did, and she found out about Eppingdale. Unfortunately, in the course of finding out, she gave herself away.
So I just eliminated her.
So you just eliminated her, making certain, of course, in the process of doing so, to throw suspicion onto Mr. Kelly.
Oh, so Mr. Kelly comes into the picture?
Very much so. Mr. Kelly, I regret to say, fell for your little story.
Which story?
The story you told him the day after he arrived.
I repeat, which story?
You told Kelly that you had the upper hand so far as Moira and Mrs. Portland were concerned. You promised Kelly that if he threw in his lot with you and got on the right side of Mrs. Portland, he'd be well taken care of.
Did Kelly tell you that?
No, not exactly.
If I were you, Temple, I should stop writing thrillers and concentrate on...
Don't you think this is rather an attractive vase?
What are you talking about?
About this vase. Don't you think it's attractive?
Temple, have you taken complete leave of... Why, you swine.
You see the point?
You cunning devil.
Out of the mouths of babes.
Stand away from that phone.
I have no intention of touching it. Green, I think perhaps you ought to know that there are 3 men watching the block and a 4th man on the lift, so if you have any melodramatic ideas in your head,
I should... What, Temple?
I should get rid of them. I should also get rid of that revolver, too.
Temple, there's a rather important point which you appear to have overlooked.
Yes?
If I'm caught, and incidentally I haven't the slightest intention of being caught, I shall pay the maximum penalty. So I might just as well dispose of you. Give me that key.
Which key?
The key in the door.
What do you want it for?
Give it to me.
All right.
Thanks. Now, turn round so that you're standing with your back to the desk.
Steve, why, I thought I'd put you to sleep.
Yes, I know you did, darling. Good evening, Mr. Green. Drop that revolver, or I shall fire. You heard what I said. Drop it.
You wouldn't have the nerve.
Wouldn't I? I'll give you 5 seconds. Drop it.
Now, would you mind turning that revolver a little to the right? I'm not exactly a nervous person, but somehow...
Steve, look out!
Oh, Paul! Oh, my leg!
Steve, what is it? Are you all right?
Oh, the chair. It hit my leg and I couldn't get a proper aim.
Found it. He's locked the door.
What are you doing?
We're going to get out of here, Steve.
There's someone coming.
Is that you, Mr. Temple?
It's Charlie.
Yes, get the door open, Charlie. Quick!
Blimey! What's going on here?
Did you see Mr. Green?
Green? Was that the bloke in the grey suit?
Yes, did you see him?
Of course I saw him. Blimey, he wasn't half in a hurry. He ran upstairs like a scolded cat.
Upstairs?
That's right.
Are you sure?
Of course I'm sure.
What's happened, Mr. Temple?
He's made a dash for it, Vosper. He's gone upstairs.
Is there an exit up there?
There's a fire escape from the roof that goes down into a cul-de-sac.
Well, where's the cul-de-sac? At the back of the building?
Yes. Let's get down there, Vosper.
There's no sign of him.
No. Are you sure there isn't another fire escape?
That's the only one, Sir Graham.
Of course, he might still be on the roof.
Yes. We'll give him another 3 minutes and then we'll send Evans and Tyler up there.
You've got the front entrance covered?
Yes, don't worry about that.
You'd better take this, Paul.
What is it? Oh, the revolver. Thanks. By the way, Steve, I thought you'd gone to sleep.
You mean you thought you'd put me to sleep? You don't think I fell for that corny old gag? I knew you were up to something, so I poured the drink away. What is it, Inspector?
I was just looking down the mews. There's someone in a car.
Quite a lot of cars.
Yes, but it looked to me as if he was watching us.
Look out! Stand on one side, Steve!
By Jove, he's letting it rip.
Sir Graham, look!
It's Green!
Paul, it's Hubert Green!
He's beaten us, Temple.
Oh, no, he hasn't. Watch that back tire.
You've done it!
You've hit it, darling!
Ha! Now we've got him!
Give Sir Graham another cup of tea, darling.
Thank you.
Paul, I've been thinking.
Don't start talking about the Madison mystery.
There's an awful lot you haven't explained.
What is it that you want to know?
Well, in the first place, what made you suspect Green?
Didn't you suspect him? Hubert Green was an extraordinary individual. The first time I met him down at Southampton, I was impressed by his personality. I remember thinking that he was the sort of man that might exercise a strong influence over certain people.
He certainly exercised it over Moira Portland.
Yes, I agree. Moira wasn't only blackmailed by Green, she was definitely under his influence.
Do you remember the night we met Green at the Manila, and he persuaded Moira to go down to his place for the weekend?
Yes, I've often wondered about that night. Why did Green go to the Manila? To see Moira?
Yes, but that wasn't his only reason. Green had been told by Elzek, who was a member of his gang, that another member, a man called Mark Kendall, was double-crossing them and had an appointment at the Manila with Archie Brooks. Green wanted to take a look at Brooks. He'd already heard quite a bit about him, and he knew that his wife, Eileen, was a very old friend of Chunky's. Well, I don't have to tell you what happened to poor old Chunky.
Well, why did Green invite us down to his place for the weekend?
Well, he wanted us at Brown Acres because he'd already made up his mind to murder Eileen, and he'd every intention of throwing suspicion onto Kelly. He wanted us as witnesses, that he had nothing whatever to do with the murder. Now, don't forget, Steve, it was our room he came to immediately after the murder.
Well, if Green murdered Eileen and threw suspicion onto Kelly, who threw the knife at our bedroom door?
Kelly did.
Kelly?
Yes.
But how do you know it was Kelly?
Well, when Sam Portland died of a heart attack, George Kelly was, to all intents and purposes, out of a job.
And a very soft job, too.
Green very quickly weighed up the situation and made Kelly a proposition. He told Kelly that if he played in with him, he had simply nothing to worry about. Kelly was obviously flattered by this, and for a time, at any rate, did precisely what Green wanted him to do.
Even to the extent of ringing you up at the Manila and telling you to keep out of the Madison case.
Yes. And then Kelly began to get ambitious. For one thing, he'd discovered that Green was not only a blackmailer, but the head of an international counterfeit racket. He told Green that he wanted to be in on this. Well, Green immediately realized that Kelly was getting out of hand and decided to double-cross him. He told Kelly to go down to Eppingdale and meet a man called Dordrecht. Green gave Kelly a 1919 penny and told him to show this to Dordrecht as a means of identification. Well, you know what happened at Eppingdale. The plane crashed and Dordrecht was killed. Kelly saw the crash and panicked. As he was running away, he dropped the penny.
Yes, but I still don't see why Kelly had to take a 1919 penny down to Eppingdale.
Green knew perfectly well that if we picked up George Kelly at Eppingdale and discovered that he carried a 1919 penny attached to a keyring or a watch chain, then we'd assume that Kelly was down at Eppingdale because of something to do with the Madison mystery. We'd assume that the penny was a symbol, and that more than likely both George Kelly and Sam Portland were members of the same nefarious organisation.
In other words, Green wanted us to take our eyes off the counterfeit racket and concentrate on the so-called Madison mystery.
I see. Tell me, did Chunky Brooks know that Green was Madison?
No, I don't think so. But he was getting pretty warm. Brooks mixed with quite a lot of people and made contacts which the ordinary CID man would never dream of making. For instance, he was quite friendly with Moira Portland. That's why she was so upset when she discovered he'd been murdered.
You mean the night she made the scene in the library, the night she was drunk?
Yes, except that she wasn't drunk, Steve. She'd taken an overdose of Benzodrino.
How did Moira discover about Chunky?
I don't think there's any doubt that she must have overheard our conversation with Eileen.
Well, yes, that's the only possible explanation.
Paul?
Yes, I know, darling. This morning...
What happened this morning? First of all, you gave Charlie the day off. And then George Kelly arrived. Then you made me ring you up from a call box and
Let me explain, Steve. I invited Kelly to the flat, and I also told Sir Graham to send Green a note asking him to call here at about 12 o'clock. As soon as Kelly arrived, I received your telephone call, which was exactly what I wanted, and I left the flat.
In other words, you left Kelly alone in the flat?
Exactly.
But why?
Do you know what this is, darling?
Of course I do. It's the thing you use for dictation, the magnetic recorder.
That's right. It records your voice quite noiselessly on a plastic record. The record plays for a quarter of an hour. All you do is switch it on.
That's right.
Well, I put it under the desk, placed the microphone on top of the vase, and switched it on.
You put it under your desk? Oh, you mean while Kelly was here?
Yes. At 12 o'clock precisely, Hubert Green turned up.
Oh.
Kelly took him into my study. Listen to this. It's just part of the recording.
I can't understand why Temple isn't here. I told you, his wife had an accident with a car. Is that servant fellow in the flat?
No, the flat's empty. Green, there's something I want to ask you. I've been wanting to speak to you about it for some time. When you murdered Eileen, why did you try to throw suspicion on me?
What are you talking about?
You know what I'm talking about. I saw you stab Eileen. I saw you carry her down to the lake.
Oh?
Yes, I did.
Is that why you threw the knife at the door? The one with the note?
Yes. I thought if Temple got down to the lake in time, there was just a chance he might save her.
Kelly, listen. I had to get rid of Eileen. Don't you understand? Things were getting desperate. She'd been talking to Chunky Brooks. Brooks knew about Eltsek and Mark Kendall.
Why, that's a confession, darling.
It was you that murdered Eltsek, wasn't it?
Yes, and I had a very narrow squeak. I bumped into Temple getting out of the lift.
It wasn't Temple you bumped into, you fool. It was me. You. Yes. Now listen, Green. You've played me for a sucker long enough. Now it's my turn.
What do you mean?
Listen to this, Steve.
I'm going to make you a proposition. I'm broke. Dead broke. I want £500 and an air passage back to the States.
In return for what, exactly?
In return for keeping my mouth shut. If you don't come over with the 500, I shall go straight to the yard and tell them about Eileen.
But the yard think that you murdered Eileen.
Well, I'll soon disillusion them. In any case, for your information, they think that Moira Portland did it.
Moira?
Yes. As soon as I knew you were throwing suspicion onto me, I got busy. With the help of a diamond brooch, I transferred the suspicion onto Moira.
Kelly, listen. I'll give you the 500, and I'll buy you an air passage, on one condition.
What's the condition?
I want you to ring up Chris Boyer and arrange to meet him at a certain address. You can tell him that shortly before
So that's why Kelly
Moira
telephoned
left him a note.
Boyer.
Yes. Green wanted to dispose of the counterfeit printing plant and at the same time continue to throw suspicion onto Boyer.
Well, Green certainly seems to have been quite a character.
Quite a character. That's putting it mildly.
What happened to Kelly?
We picked him up at the airport just over an hour ago.
Oh, I don't know why, but I feel rather sorry about that. I was quite fond of Kelly.
Yes, Kelly had quite a way with him.
Well, that's the end of the Madison mystery, Steve. Oh, by golly, I'm tired.
What are you going to do now, Temple?
Oh, I expect I shall write another book, Sir Graham. Or as Sam Dodsworth would say, sit back with my feet on the mantelpiece and think of nothing more important than... Oh, Timothy, I'm tired.
Temple, I suppose you wouldn't be interested in taking on another case?
Straight away?
Yes.
Oh, that depends. Oh, what's it all about?
Well, I'll tell you. 2 days ago, Inspector Vosper received a telephone call from a girl who called herself Mademoiselle Didre. She told Vosper that she had vital information concerning the identity of a man reputed to be the leader of the largest white slave organization in... I say, Temple. Temple! Why, he's asleep.
Of course he's asleep.
What do you mean?
Didn't you see me drop the tablet into his cup of tea?
But, Steve, why on earth?
I'll tell you why. Because I want to have a nice heart-to-heart talk with you, Sir Graham.
With me, Steve?
Yes, with you. From now on, we're not going to get mixed up in any more of your mysterious cases. So you and the rest of the bright little boys at Scotland Yard can just...
All right, Steve. I just thought this particular case might interest your husband, that's all. It doesn't matter, if you feel like that about it.
I do feel like that about it.
All right, Steve. That's perfectly all right. There's nothing to worry about. Just forget it.
What happened to this Mademoiselle Didre, anyway?
This what?
Mademoiselle Didre.
Oh, she was murdered.
How original. Where?
In Soho.
It gets worse and worse.
Yes. But the extraordinary part about it, Steve, is that she was strangled with a silk scarf. It was an English scarf, but oddly enough, it had pictures of Paris on it. The Arc de Triomphe, the Madeleine, the Eiffel Tower.
Go on.
Wrapped in the scarf was a small white carnation.
A small white... I say, darling, wake up. Paul, this is the most extraordinary business. Oh, isn't he infuriating? Just look at him. His feet on the mantelpiece. Paul, wake up. Wake up, darling. Wake up.
That was the final episode of the Francis Durbridge serial, Paul Temple and the Madison Mystery, with Crawford Logan as Paul Temple and Gerda Stevenson as Steve. Others taking part were Emma Curry, Richard Greenwood, Robin Lang, Michael Mackenzie, Greg Powery, Gareth Thomas, and Nick Underwood. The production for the BBC was by Patrick Rayner.